Ladies and gentlemen, this is the state of the scene.
Yo, what the fuck is up, Warped Tour? The state of the scene at SOTS Podcast on all social media. Sam here with Marcos.
I'm fucking psyched.
Let's go.
I'm amped.
Let's fucking go.
I'm stoked. I'm hyped.
Keep going.
Is that enough?
Keep going.
I don't know if I know the rest of those adjectives. Or synonyms?
Primetime, baby. It's the last episode of the
time.
fucking year, and we're here to do it. We're here to pick the top 20 albums of 2023 and fucking rank them from 20 to 1.
And of course, we will select our favorite record of the year.
That would be correct.
We will crown one album king at the very end of this episode, and not just us, but you at home as well.
That's correct.
Because
Fan voted.
Fan voted.
Will be announced after the top 20 albums are settled on. Marcos, I need you to prepare yourself. Because I'm in fucking wartime mode right now,
You're in
bro.
wartime mode.
I'm strapped up. I'm laced up. I got my protective gear. I'm ready to fucking battle it out with you. I've got some albums I need on this fucking top 20. Like, my year will not be complete unless I get these albums in the top 20. And as far as I'm concerned right now, this shit is wide open. Wide the fuck open. I don't care who you think is topping this list.
I'm ready to go punch for punch with you. I got a couple. I got a 10, 20 albums that I need on this list myself. So I think it's safe to say it's going to get a little violent.
Kiss them goodbye. Say goodbye to them right the fuck now. They never stood a chance, bro.
We'll have never agreed more on records this year.
No. I'm just gonna I'm gonna argue with you just for the sake of it. Even if I do agree with you on something, you're like, I don't know, so you token in the 20. I'm like, you wasting my time right now with this bullshit.
We have prepared all year long for this very episode.
Yeah.
Listened to hundreds, nay, thousands of records this year.
Camera cutaway to us laying down on a couch playing Switch with our headphones in.
And we whittled it down to mere 70 records that we would like to consider.
We're starting with a lot of nominations.
Yeah.
Right now we've got them in alphabetical order, Marcus. We're going to list them off 10 at a time. I'll start. Current nominees for the... Hold on.
Buckle your fucking AirPods, okay, baby?
Buckle them in.
It's about to get real fucking real.
Strap those AirPods in. Tighten them. Current nominees for the top 20 albums of 2023. I'll start. Mother by Veil of Maya. 10,000 Gex by 100 Gex. 152 by Taking Back Sunday. Abeyance by Alt. A Call to the Void by Hot Milk. A Gradual Decline in Morale by Kim Dracula. A Kiss for the Whole World by Enter Shikari. Amongst the Low and Empty by Signs of the Swarm. Built to Last by Arrows in Action. Burning Throne by Acres.
Calling the Dogs by Citizen. Daydreamer by Dead Lakes. Deadly Fun by Dark Divine. Director's Cuts by To the Grave. Evergreen by Paris. Fatalism by Polaris. Ferality by Unity Texas. Feral by Left to Suffer. Freak of Nature by Heart Attack Man. Garden of Eden by Bad Rabbits.
Hard Reset by The Word Alive. Heritage by Distant. Hotel Blue by Broadside. Human by Resolve. Intellectual Property by Water Parks. Losing What We Love by Knucklepuck. May This Keep You Safe from Harm by Off-Road Minivan. Moments Elsewhere by Johnny Booth. Mundane Magic by A Story Told. Never Fade by This Wildlife.
No Joy by Spanish Love Songs. Not Without My Ghosts by The Amity Affliction. Nublar by Exo Armor. One More Time by Blink-182. Out of the Shadows by Escape the Fate. Past, Present, Future by Meet Me at the Altar. Periphery 5. Gent Is Not a Genre by Periphery. Prepare for Despair by Point North. Problems by Not a Toy. Ready to Eat by Beauty School Dropout.
Reborn Superstar by Hannah B.A., Reflections by Caskets, Retrovision by Honey Revenge, Ruckus by Movements, Sanguivore by Creeper, Self-Titled by Archetypes Collide, Shame on Me by Catch Your Breath, Slow Burn by Conquer Divide, So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy, Suffer in Heaven by Chelsea Grin.
Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes, Super Bloom by Silent Planet, Superluminal by Locket, Symptoms of Survival by Dying Wish, Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token, Tether by Of Mice and Men, The Best Part About Being Human by Bearings, The Burden of Faith by Of Sulfur, The Death We Seek by Currents, The Jaws of Life by Pierce the Veil.
And finally, The Main by The Main, The Noble Art of Self-Destruction by Holding Absence, The Other One by Baby Metal, The Seventh Son by Bury Tomorrow, The Surface by Beartooth, This Is Why by Paramore, Truth Decay by Yumi at 6, Ultraviolet by As Everything Unfolds, Venom by Wargasm, Void Eternal by Nothing Nowhere, What If I Break by Windwalkers, Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan, Would You Miss It by Koyo, Zig by Poppy, and Zweilicht by Mental Cruelty.
Good effort. So we lied at the top. This year stacked
Stacked as fuck.
70 weren't in consideration. It was 75 total records that we'll be taking a look at to decide whether or not they qualify for 20. We're going to deliberate here. We'll settle on those 20, but obviously then we'll have to rank them. So that's still within the same episode. I know we've split it up in the past. By the end of this episode, we're going to have a number one of 2023. And listing all those off, Sam, I really noticed, I think we've captured the entire spectrum, the entire breadth of what this podcast is. The types of bands we discuss, we're all over the place on here.
We really are. There's a lot of variety. Do you want to approach this like Song of the Year, where we do what we did there and sort of pull off different albums off the bench?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't.
What do you think? Is that the way to do this?
I don't hate it. What would be the other option?
Maybe like a cut or stay approach.
I don't. I've never.
That feels
liked that.
harsh. I liked the way we did it with
is
Song.
More than anything else, a celebration of all these records.
Yeah.
I don't look at every record on this list and think to myself, that's definitely a top 20. That's impossible. But definitely some lip service for a good amount of records this year. I enjoyed a lot of the music that dropped this year.
Agreed.
And I think a lot of people will look at like last year and say that is the greatest year in music since like 2004 or some shit, like some random day year. I look at this year too, and I think it's quietly stacked. I think it's been a really strong year. And I think that what I will tell you about this year is that I don't have a top bracket that's untouchable. Like normally I'd come in every year and I'm like, well, I already kind of know my top like 6 or 7 albums. I don't right now. Like heading into this episode, I don't know.
I have some albums I feel very strongly about. I'm going to be honest with you. Very strongly.
But no, but I agree. But I'm saying there's no not convincing me. You know what I mean? Don't take advantage of me.
I would literally never do that. To what end? For what purpose?
But maybe I'm lying.
All right, let's fucking get into it.
Let's get down to
Here's
fucking
what we're
business.
doing right now. We're going to start with the soft hard locks.
Oh boy.
I'm going to let you go first. We'll start at the top and work our way down. What's an album that immediately you think needs to be in contention for the top 20? There's no limits right now. So like just as they jump out to you.
Okay.
And at this point I will not push back.
Abeyance by Alt.
You sure? I'm kidding. Jesus.
If you don't think I'm sure about that choice, it's going to be a long episode for you.
Fucking hell, bro.
A long night for you.
I select with the second pick in the 2023 album top 20 album of the year draft. 10,000 Gex.
Ooh.
By 100 Gex.
Okay. I'm going to throw one at you right now.
Hit me.
A Gradual Decline in Morale by Kim Dracula. We haven't even left the 10 yet. The initial 10.
The goal here is to essentially cut the list down. It's where you're going to start, you know? All right.
How are we feeling about these other top 10 here? What are we looking at?
How am I feeling about everything that's still on this list?
Yeah, well, like just the couple that we've already been eyeing here at the top. Like, are we moving on already?
Here's what I think we should do. I think we should keep moving and then assess what we didn't choose to see if we feel as if we looked something like we looked it over. You know what I mean?
Okay. Sam is moving Daydreamer by Dead Lakes up
into contention.
And I think we should also potentially move Calling the Dogs by Citizen up.
I select Fatalism by Polaris. Also, I'm pretty sure it's Polaris, but I really do say...
You do.
I do enjoy saying Polaris. I don't know why.
You say
You
say it like we used to say Pavaris.
It's for me, it's like... It's just like, I'm just more cultured than everybody else, you know what I mean? So it's just like, the way I accentuate certain words is different than other people.
No pushback, huh?
What do you mean no pushback? What do you mean no
move
pushback?
Evergreen by Paris up.
Okay.
A lot of good albums that I'm looking at right now.
You got to think, Marcos, if you're in that top 10 right now that has not been chosen yet, things are not looking promising for you.
Let's go to the bottom.
Okay.
You're funny.
I'm funny?
You're taking
Thank
the
you.
easy choices, dude.
What do you mean? I'm taking the ones that I think should be in the top 20.
I'm
Easy
into the crazy
choices.
one.
Shut up.
Crazy one. Let's move Heritage by Distant up.
Okay. You're taking the... Shut up, bro. Don't get in my head. You might think I'm crazy, but I think all three of these...
I don't. I've been eyeing them.
All right, why don't you go ahead and read about loud for everybody?
We threw Intellectual Property by Waterparks up alongside Losing What We Love by Knuckle Puck and May This Keep You Safe from Harm by Off-Road Minivan. And I would like to move a couple more for sure. Hard Reset by The Word Alive. Hard Reset by The Word Alive.
By The Word Alive?
You gotta think, Sam, if you're in the top 20, you haven't been chosen yet.
That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I wasn't challenging you, bro.
All I'm saying is that's what I'm saying. That's it. Okay, pause. I just had this like weird thing where I'm like, what if I didn't hit record and I just need to know that I did? Okay. Move a little bit? Okay, perfect. I just like, if it's in my head right now, I need it to be gone so that I can focus.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Can I? May I?
No, you may not.
All right, bet. My bad.
Now you may.
Mundane Magic, A Story Told.
Interesting. A boy after my own heart. Okay. I don't know if I said it. One More Time by Blink-182 is what I chose earlier.
Yeah, my bad.
Just got to make sure that I keep that in the back of my mind. Ooh, Ready to Eat. What are you saying? You're saying top and bottom? Like these three? God damn it.
Whoa.
God damn it.
I'm saying at least Not a Toy, at least Beauty School.
Okay, so Problems by Not a Toy, Ready to Eat by Beauty School Dropout.
Yes. We're at 16.
I'm actually surprised at how much we haven't jumped at yet.
It's because at this point I need to kind of I gotta have a good feeling so far, you know. I'll work my way to the other ones and the arguments I may or may not have.
Sure. Whatever you say, boss.
How do you feel about 41 through 44?
At this juncture, I'm okay with it.
We're at a solid 20 now. We've just included Reflections by Caskets.
Some discussions to be had about
Sanguivore by Creeper. Ruckus by Movements and Retrovision by Honey Revenge.
some discussions to be had about some of those choices, but we'll get to it. So much for Stardust.
Yep. Going up. Going up.
All right. Officially over 20. So we know there's some conversations to be had. What else you like?
It'd be a weird episode. It'd be a weird end of the year if we didn't choose Super Bloom by Silent Planet.
I need to go ahead and grab Trophy Eyes while we're doing it.
Yep.
Suicide and Sunshine.
There was an argument at some point to grab 5 right there, which is nuts.
5. Jeez. Well, okay.
Locket, Dying Wish, Sleep Token of Mice Bearings? Middle of this list is stacked. Or back half, I guess.
So we grabbed Superliminal by Locket, Symptoms of Survival by Dying Wish, Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token, Tether by Of Mice and Men, and The Best Part About Being Human by Bearings.
I think the goal right now is at least to get us to 35 or 40. I feel like 40.
I would like to take The Death We Seek by Currents.
Okay.
There's an album that I think
down.
isn't on here that I'm going to have to add after the fact, and I need you to just be aware of that.
Yeah, you're good.
Because I'm seeing it already. Hold on.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
'Cause
Heaven or by Invent Anime.
Yeah, I don't know how we completely...
You know what it is? Is that because you and I do this separate from one another, I'm like, all right, well, Marcos has got me. I don't have to worry about adding Invent Anime.
The big question is, what is the band we've somehow missed that absolutely needs to be here? That's not in the list whatsoever.
Just got it.
I know. What's number 2? What's number 2?
You gotta ask me the one I don't know, bro.
I'm looking at the main and Holding Absence, and both of those got to get catapulted up to the top of the list.
Catapulted, he says.
We're
Okay.
at 32.
Okay.
We've added The Noble Art of Self-Destruction by Holding Absence and The Main by The Main.
All right, I'm seeing some. All right, let's talk about it because right now I'm seeing Yumi at 6, Paramore, and Beartooth are all in for me.
Let's move Seventh Son up with them.
Okay. By Barry Tomorrow.
Yes.
So that's The Seventh Son by Barry Tomorrow, The Surface by Beartooth, This Is Why by Paramore, and Truth Decay by Yumi at 6.
And really, it's only about 7 or 8 that we haven't even really considered yet.
Oh my God, we went through the list that quickly?
Well, we have added...
I mean, I guess we're not really talking about any of it at this point.
36. I say let's get 4 more on here.
Interesting. Okay, well...
Hot mulligan.
Here we go.
Nowhere.
There's 3 of them. God damn it. Then we'll still have a list that's like 60% of what it was.
Right.
Here right now is the only other one that I think I need. So,
Zig by Poppy is Sam's last need.
Yeah, I mean, technically, I just threw up Void Eternal by Nothing Nowhere, What If I Break by Windwalkers, and Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan. Zig by Poppy puts us at 40.
I'd like to get to 45. I think there's albums on here that are worth discussing that we have not whatsoever.
I mean, we can discuss everything still down here in terms of like, is there anything else though, like right off the bat that you need to move up, that you need to have the conversation about?
It feels like we're missing shit now.
Well, like period, like
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
God damn it! Don't get in my head with this shit.
I want to put To the Grave and Signs of the Swarm up.
Okay. So that would be Amongst the Low and Empty by Signs of the Swarm.
And then Director's Cut by To the Grave. I think getting up to 45 at least is a bare minimum. And
I
then we
mean, yeah, I
can
mean, at
sorta
this point, we
dissect-
might as well, right?
Yeah. And maybe 50 after that.
No, because then we're just going to be back where we started. So let's lock ourselves at 45. All right, I'm looking at the rest of this fucking list, bro. Looking and I'm looking and honestly, I would probably say Shame on Me by Catch Your Breath.
Interesting. I want to throw Freak of Nature by Heart Attack Man in.
Okay, bet. That would leave us with one more slot.
Would it? And I would get the final choice.
No, because you just
Interesting.
fucking got shut up. Not that I think I've really kept track in any capacity.
This is hard.
All right, let's talk about some of these albums that are down here at the bottom. Mother by Veil of Maya.
I had a good time with this record. I think for the weight, it wasn't quite what I was looking for, or like it just didn't quite meet the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Partially on me. I have a habit of having higher expectations sometimes. Than
No,
maybe I
those are
should.
expectations that were set by the band, who I think their last two albums were phenomenal. And I
Yeah,
think
you're not wrong.
you're right. You add on top of that the weight. And while I too enjoyed Mother by Veil of Maya, it was not as strong as I hoped it would be.
If we're all being honest with ourselves here, Taking Back Sunday are just happy to be here.
Yeah.
152 was 300 times the record that Tidal Wave was, the one that released prior to this one.
Agreed.
And that's enough. Is next year or the year after Taking Back Sunday's year? Maybe. If they release another album, not this year. But 152 had a lot of good songs on it. This is where I start to get a little... I'm looking at these next three, Sam, and Hot Milk, I think, is A Call to the Void was worth its weight for a debut record.
Okay.
I think that there's just something so magnetic about this band.
I'll tell you this right now. Of the three you just listed, I feel strongest about A Call to the Void.
The one that I'm disappointed most in myself about is A Kiss for the Whole World by Anushkari.
Disappointed in yourself in what capacity?
I feel like I really loved this album when I first listened to it, and it was one of the, honestly, admittedly, few records that just didn't quite hit the same way on re-listens. But I feel like it's my fault. Like there's something about this record that just is so great. And I feel like it's everything to me, but I can't form an argument to throw it in the list.
And you see, I kind of disagree. I think, well, it has bright spots. It does not come together nearly as compelling or cohesively as the last record did.
I feel like you're
And I
singing
think
a different tune from the review. I remember you being higher on this record.
I think that over time, my appreciation for this record has dwindled in a way that I don't feel very strongly about it being in the top 20. And it did not have the staying power that their other records did for me.
Okay. I think it burned really bright for me initially. And like you said, staying power just maybe wasn't there.
There are aspects of it that showcase why Enter Shikari is such a great band. That's undeniable. I just think, with a lot of bands that we discuss, it's not just a comparison of them against the other records that came out this year, but it's also like my mindset about them in comparison to like their prior records, right? It's why I feel so strongly about someone like Beartooth, because I've been so ambivalent about their last few records, but feel very passionately about this new one.
Okay. Very fair.
Built to Last by
Very
Hours in
fair.
Action.
Man, I remember enjoying this record a whole bunch when I first heard it, and I revisited this one, of course, and I just had as good of a time as I remember, and I just kind of realized that, like, man, Airs in Action aren't really doing anything different. Like, this isn't something I haven't heard before, but I'll be damned if they don't do it fucking, like, the execution is phenomenal with this band. And I think that, like, this record doesn't have a miss on it. And, like, that's got to count for something. Also, like, I very specifically went to a band for this sort of music that I don't go to anymore. And this band has scratched that itch extremely well.
Interesting.
I don't know.
You're saying they're like filling like a vacancy in your like listening habits? Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like more specifically All Time Low.
I don't think it's quite as flawless as you've sold it here. I think there are some really great songs. You know, we've talked about the credits in terms of like collaboration of the year, but I mean that song also is a very good Arrows in Action song, maybe irrelevant.
There's something so great about this band's like storytelling capability within a song as well. Not that it's a concept album or anything like that, but like they can really paint a picture and illustrate a feeling so well that I almost think you're not giving them enough credit.
Interesting. Okay. I think Burning Throne by Acres is in a pool of bands that I think just always tend to really touch on a style of like post-hardcore metalcore that I really enjoy, which is to say that like the floor for UK bands is so significantly higher than so many other bands. And I'm not sure quite what that is, but they seem to like just really be in tune with like what a band from the scene should sound like in a way that other bands struggle to get to. I don't know what it is, but it's just like, man, you know, 4 tracks deep when you're in an album like this, that ballad is absolutely going to be fucking massive, and every fucking time it is.
My problem with Burning Throne is that all year long I've been trying to convince myself that I would end up liking it more than I did. Again, not to say it's not a great record. This band for me is coming off of, I think this was before we did combined lists. Their debut album for me was a top 10 the year it dropped.
I remember it changed your fucking life. Yeah.
And this one just didn't quite hit in the same way. It didn't register in the same way. And that's okay. But, you know, I just didn't love it as much as I wanted to.
I think for all intents and purposes, Dark Divine is
just happy to be here.
A very fun horror-themed band, which happens to be a small niche within this scene that I'm really in love with. I don't think that this album in particular was like a real knock out of the park. I think that the future is very bright for Dark Divine.
100%.
But it's not this album this year.
I could see myself talking Ferality into this upper echelon of records by Unity, Texas. It's got some fucking insane bangers.
Yeah, this is peaks and valleys for me personally.
Specifically Diamond Eyes, which is, it should have actually been thrown in for a top song consideration of the year. One of my favorites. Also Rock Shit. Just absolutely insane. But you're not wrong. There's a couple moments where it loses you, but like
it just doesn't quite maintain for the entirety of the album.
But this band does an incredible job of pulling you right back in every time. Garden of Eden by Bad Rabbits.
You skipped Feral by Left to Suffer for what it's worth.
Oh, my bad. Well, Feral didn't have quite the staying power I needed it to have, but it's still full of like some of the craziest shit you've heard all year.
Artificial Anatomy with Kim Dracula is still absolutely insane.
Yeah. Just not a whole lot more to say on it. I think that Left to Suffer have a top 20 album in them.
Yeah.
100%. Is this the year? I think at this point I'm starting to look at this record and compare it to everything else we've put up, and I'm not quite feeling it up against those. And it's the same thing for Garden of Eden by Bad Rabbits, an album I actually wish I spent a little bit more time with, but I really did enjoy it. Lots to like on it. Just, I don't know if it cuts it for me this year.
Garden of Eden isn't super my style. The title track I absolutely adore. The rest of the album just felt like it sort of bounced off of me. And this is one of those cases where I think you run into my own personal preferences, and this just didn't really align with any of them. So it's hard for me to say any aspect of that record is underwhelming, and more so just not in line with my personal taste. Human by Resolve is a little more my speed, where for all intents and purposes, it's a relatively straight ahead metalcore record, but it has a certain level of underlying, like,
the execution is so unexpected.
I was gonna say it's aspects of it are like weirdly magical. Like it has this like feeling of whimsy and hope to it that really helps set it apart. Human by Resolve is probably one that I would pull out of this sort of bottom right now and move up.
Okay. All right. I like that. This Johnny Booth album is actually, I think this is a record that will probably not get pulled up. And a year or two from now, we will regret that decision. I think the cool thing about the Johnny Booth record is that it's just fucking packed with variety. There are times, actually I could talk myself into this being top 20. There are times where this record is like, the change from one song to the next. Listening to Moments Elsewhere by Johnny Booth is like a radio station. Like at some point you forget who it is you're listening to, and you go to check the radio and it's like, oh, this is still Johnny Booth. And then like 2 minutes later, you find yourself doing the same thing when it switches to the next song. You're like, I'm fucking love this. What is this? Oh, it's still Johnny Booth. I'm listening to the album. That's why. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, man, they do such a great job of just throwing everything at the wall.
Feeling
and
versatile without really significantly changing anything that they're doing. Like I don't think Johnny Booth really flirts with any other genre that isn't metalcore, but they figure out ways of making each one of those individual songs on the album feel fresh.
100%.
I feel you there. Never Fade by This Wildlife, I think, is a pleasant listening experience. One that I enjoy, but I don't think any one aspect of it really stood out in the terms of, this competition and trying to leverage any aspect of it against some of these other albums.
It had one or two really big songs on it though, which is why it's absolutely, thrown on here just for a look, just in case, on the off chance,
No Joy by Spanish Love Songs. That feels like an album that's better than the albums that it's been saddled with down here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not wrong. How do we rank these bottom ones?
It just feels like neither you or I seem to have a strong passion for it, even though at the time I really loved it.
A dead body in a McDonald's parking lot.
It's Spanish Love Songs are so good at that quirky fucking Midwest emo ass bullshit, and when I'm in the mood for it, there's like nothing better. But there's also like a lot of times where I feel like I have to convince myself that I want to listen to it, which is very strange.
That's the tough thing about this album is like I respect it.
Yeah,
I don't want it anywhere near me.
I think there are a lot of albums that are similar to this one that I prefer this year. I'm going to be honest with you. If Not Without My Ghost by the Amity Affliction is not in contention, then this band will never again ever be in contention. We are literally saying it does not matter how good the Amity Affliction is. They will never be in the top 20 because that's the level of performance they display on Not Without My Ghost.
They left it all out on the floor.
This is an incredible The Amity Affliction album, and with that come caveats.
It's so much better than it has any right to be, and it's insane that this is such a serious consideration right now.
It's just,
what are the caveats?
The problem is that like the Amity Affliction are who they say they are, and they'll never change. So even when they're at their absolute fucking finest, the aspects of that band that I still find to be lacking consistently lack. So this might be the catchiest song with the tightest breakdown you've ever heard, and you will still wonder, why didn't we give these lyrics a second pass?
And
that never changes.
Amity Affliction are like the one band where like you can't stop eating what's on the plate, but you're constantly asking like, who let them cook? Who let them cook?
When I am deep in the throes of the Amity Affliction, I'm not worried about, is this a top 20 album? I'm just like,
Am I having an awesome time? Yeah.
this is the shit I was raised on, right? But then when you pull out and you look at the broader sort of conversation here, it's like the Amity Affliction are not in competition with a lot of the bands that we pulled up.
But are they? Just saying.
Nublar by Exo Armor is
This is a similar one to Amity Affliction.
it's an incredible showcase of a really, really promising up and coming metalcore band, and one that I feel like is nearing extinction lately, where bands are scared to get a little creative and have fun in the metalcore scene, and a lot of it feels like the working man's metalcore, and it's very serious business, and we don't fuck around, and there's 4 instruments that are allowed to be used, and everything else is like, with the sole exception of what the producer decides to do with your song after the fact. But Exo Armor just feels like it has vision.
It harkens
from the
back to
jump.
like the 2013 I See Stars days where like it's electronicore, like you said, just they're out there having fun, bro.
But it's not electronicore like people think of, like a lot of the ways Octane bands have been like.
That's why I specified 2013. That had a
Right.
different definition back in the day.
Right. It's not these bands who are feel like they've been sort of cleaned up and spiced up and dazzled. And no, this feels like there's still something a little grittier about this, right? It's not it doesn't feel safe. It feels like a swing, and I appreciate a swing. Mark, speaking
I don't
about
know.
swings,
I don't know if the swing is strong enough though. Speaking of swings, speaking of having a lot of fun, Out of the Shadows by Escape the Fate was clearly the most invested I've heard all of these members sound in a decade, and it pays off. It's a great listen.
If this album does not make the top 20, Escape the Fate will never make a top 20 ever again. This is that album.
This is that album potentially for them. I can't see it's like the Amity Affliction. You zoom out and suddenly the competition level is like Escape the Fate right now are like a really good high school basketball recruit or football recruit. And then they get to the like college or the pro leagues and they're just, they're getting outworked.
Game's different.
And they were talented in certain areas, but it doesn't translate, all the time.
Past, Present, Future by Meet Me at the Altar. I think Meet Me at the Altar is a really promising band who have shown flashes of brilliance, but I do not think that came together on this album. This feels like, respectfully, a product of studio notes, and I wish there was more of this band in here and less of the branding, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I'm not really fighting too hard for this one.
I think this band's debut EP was a lot more exciting than this album.
I was gonna say, I went back and re-listened to this one, and then I checked on the EP, and I just had a better time with that.
It felt much more inspired, where this feels much more. I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this.
It's a little flatter.
Yeah.
Just flatter.
Periphery 5, Degent is not a genre by Periphery.
If Periphery 5, Degent is not a
Let's
genre,
start with it right now.
doesn't make this list, it'll take another 5 years for Periphery to be in contention. That's how long the wait was with this one, right?
I think this is another case of peaks and valleys, and while there are moments on here where Periphery kind of reminds you why they're that fucking band, there are also moments on here where I find myself getting a little bored.
This one, with re-listens, actually jumped up a little bit for me. Not
actually
not,
the opposite for me. Funny enough.
So it's interesting. I kind of definitely have gathered that much, but that's sort of what I almost expected going in, because I feel like I just, we talk a little bit before we record these things, and I just didn't hear the word periphery out of your mouth once.
Wildfire, Dying Star, like some incredible shit on here. I just like, I don't think this band maintains it for the runtime of this record. I just don't. I credit them with being, a really creative, like forward thinking, like a band that doesn't like adhere to any particular like one notion of what is expected of a genre. I think Periphery are great in a lot of ways. I just do not feel the magic in this album that I felt with like Alpha Omega.
Yeah.
And even personally,
it's going to be hard to recapture that magic forever.
Even though it's a little bit under that, I think even Hail Stan was a better version of this album.
What about Select Difficulty?
Select Difficulty was a real swing and a miss for me personally. Which is why
I'm the opposite, though. I thought Select Difficulty was a lot better than Hail Stan.
Interesting. I think I remember that from last year because, or I'm sorry, well, the year fucking Hail Stan, it was like 2019 or whatever the fuck.
Prepare for Despair by Point North.
You might be able to talk me into that one.
You
honestly.
might be able to talk me into that one.
I had a lot of
too.
fun with that record. It's just like it's no bars, fucking hook after hook after hook. Like I think like the overall like body of the record, there's not really a bigger story to tell here.
No,
it's just like band's really tight at writing like hooks and melodies, and I think there are better versions of this album this year, but this is a good record that I had a lot of fun with.
They pull in a good feature from The Ghost Inside. It's got some of the catchiest tunes you've heard all year long.
Jairus Johnson's on there.
Jairus Johnson. You could talk me into this record. You probably can't talk me into Reborn Superstar by Hannah B.A., but it's not because it's that bad of a record. I had a good time with it.
It's not that bad of a record.
It's just, it doesn't fully keep my attention. But I did have a really good time with it.
It doesn't quite match the strength of like the singles.
It does have a great overall energy to it. I think that this band is clearly extremely talented. I expect to talk about them for years to come. I do not think that 2023 is officially their year.
Archetypes Collide by Archetypes Collide.
The song's got quietly one of my favorite tracks of the year and Fade Away.
What If I Fall is also very good.
What If I Fall is also very good.
This is another album where it's like slightly similar to maybe Point North, where it's Archetypes Collide are very good at writing these really fucking big melodies, these anthemic kind of metalcore songs. I think that they lack a specific feature to really help set them, like help them stand out from like other similar styled bands. So then I start to kind of like pair them against each other, and like, ultimately I would in this instance take a Catch Your Breath to Archetypes Collide in terms of very similarly stylized albums that are very well written. They just like they maybe need a little bit more personality.
Archetypes Collide are kind of missing the it factor.
Precisely.
And I don't know what it is or what I personally even need that to be, but what we're working with isn't quite enough.
You know when you hear it.
Yeah. Slow Burn by Conquer Divide was a quietly excellent record.
It was excellent, feels a bit strong. I think it's a very enjoyable
record.
record.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. But I think ultimately I almost don't have like too strong feelings about it. Like I don't really have a lot to say one way or the other. I don't feel a lot of passion for that album.
Metalcore album.
Yeah. Suffer in Heaven by Chelsea Grin is an album that coming out of the gates, like when I heard it earlier this year, I thought it was like phenomenal. Like it really stood out to me. And then I kind of like did not super enjoy it as much on a re-listen. It just like, I think Chelsea Grin has always had like these really distinguishing songs throughout their career, and in ways that's been bad because with some of their albums it feels like they so deeply overshadow every other track that it makes for kind of a weak listening experience. This, I think, is low-key a more consistent listening experience than a lot of their other albums, but I don't think it has like that wow song that really helps pull it all together.
The problem is that we need all of the other songs to come up to that high level that a lot of those singles typically are. I don't disagree that this is one of the more consistent listening experiences for a Chelsea Grin album.
Mm-hmm.
What I will tell you is that on re-listen, I actually enjoyed this one a lot more than I did at the top of the year. Not enough to really argue it into the top 20, but there are tracks on here like, I think it's called Eye of God, that fucking hit in a way that it just bounced off of me at the top of the year.
Okay. So it was a little better for you this time around.
But it wasn't quite as good as Suffer in Hell.
And initially I thought it was, but not after a re-listen. Marcus, The Burden of Faith by Of Sulphur. Of Sulphur, again, another sort of newish band, very promising. Some individual tracks that really stood out, but overall didn't quite pull it together across the course of this album. But having seen them live, I'm very excited to see what they do next. This next one's going to be a tough conversation.
It's not. You've really talked me out of this one, unfortunately.
Did you re-listen to it?
I didn't. Well, I mean, I kind of did at the top when I was like, I wasn't doing full re-listens, but I was going around and getting like a taste of everything. I'd throw on like 4 or 5 tracks,
okay,
then move on to the next thing.
Sure.
And it just wasn't sticking. And I don't know how much of it is influenced by
how right I was this whole time.
Not exactly how right you are, but more so the thing that I kept coming back to is that this band's status, like the bands I consider their peers,
right,
they do not write music anywhere near that same quality as them. As far as on this record, that's not present on this one. Pierce the Veil's The Jaws of Life. If you directly compete that to bands like Bring Me the Horizon, who I consider in the same tier, it doesn't hold a candle to like any of their last handful of records, you know? And then that's not even talking about this band's own material. Doesn't touch the first 2.
Doesn't touch the first 3.
Doesn't touch the first 3. It comes kind of close to Misadventures. Whatever level you consider that to be. And then, yeah, this one's just not really there. And that's it. That ultimately bugs me. I'm like, I should look at Pierce the Veil and automatically it's top 10 record of the year. And even having to think about it, is that where it belongs? I want to knock it even lower, you know? So that's why it ultimately probably doesn't even make the cut for this top fucking 45.
I think it's flat. I think a lot of the choices on it are very uninspired. I think that some studio exec feels like they came in and they cut the legs out from under it.
They butchered this band, man.
And I don't mean it in any capacity in terms of what level of aggressive it is. I just think that so much of it feels like sterile in a way that's just like really unexciting from a band that used to be so exciting.
See, I think I disagree with you, but I agree it's not moving up. I liked sort of the attitude on this record. I liked that it just felt very bitter and very just over it in a way.
I think there's something in the way that each individual song is structured that is playing to something that isn't the creativity being brought to the table by the band. It's an external decision about song length or song structure, and it makes every song, while different, somehow still feel the same to me.
Now, I do think that this actually has some really great songs on it. I won't take that away from it.
Some of those songs I do really enjoy as well. Mostly
I think
the
Past Their
singles,
Nirvana
if
is
I'm
still
being
a good
honest.
track. Even When I'm Not With You, another single. Emergency Contact, definitely a single. And then that closing track, which featured, I think, Chloe something.
Chloe Moriando.
Another great track. But overall, does it all come together? It doesn't. The other one by Baby Metal.
I mean, honestly, this is the most passion I've ever felt about baby metal, which is why this album really stood out for me. And it houses Metal Kingdom, which I think is far and away the best baby metal song, period. But as like overall fun album, but nothing that I really thought was like a top 20 contender.
Yeah, I look at a song like Metal Kingdom and it's far and away my favorite on that record. And I think for that reason, it's like, man, it's a really high like peak. And I'm not saying it's valleys around it, but it is a undeniable peak on that record. Ultraviolet by As Everything Unfolds.
Probably one of, as far as I'm concerned, one of the better albums that's in this bottom
In
half
this
that
bunch?
we have. Yeah.
Yeah. This one's funny, or this band is funny because I remember really loving that debut record the first time I heard it.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back for a re-listen the year it dropped and just being thoroughly unimpressed in a really strange way.
It was one of those records where you really thought it was a lock for like top 20, and then you listened to it again and it just didn't quite hit the same way.
Suddenly you had an open slot for someone else. And I remember not feeling super strongly about Ultraviolet when it first dropped. And then on re-listen I came back and I liked it a lot more. And I'm not saying it's something we have to bump. I agree it's one of the better records down here at this bottom half.
I think there might be one or two others that'll take over it, to be honest with you.
Is Venom by Wargasm one of those?
No, that was a little underwhelming for me. This is another album where I think there's a couple really great songs on here, but overall I think I prefer the Explicit mixtape that came out prior to this. Which felt like more of a collection of singles that in which case Wargasm had really knocked it out of the park with each individual one. And then with Venom, I just don't think it's quite as entertaining over the course of a full album. I'm still really excited about this project. Like I think they'll find it. I just don't think they found it on this album.
I feel a lot stronger about this record as far as liking it more, but I don't know if it's a top 20 record of the year, which is why I'm not going to really push to get it into the upper ranks here.
Okay.
Had a lot of really good time with a lot of the songs on here. Bang You Head, featuring fucking Limp Bizkit was a cool track. Just this band continues to be one of the better times you could ask for. But I don't know if Venom fully brings it. Would You Miss It by Koyo?
I think this is also a no for me, in terms of whether I would move it up, but there's just no one individual aspect of this that really stuck out to me. Like overall, I think Koyo is a decent band, and I enjoyed this record when I listened to it, but you know, funny enough, this was my most listened to record on Spotify this year. And more often than not, that album every year always tends to be the one that I listen the most to, try to kind of figure out what I wanted to say about it when I was really struggling to find things to say about it. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Okay.
Where it'd be like an album I enjoyed, but because I didn't like super love it or dislike it, I would kind of have that struggle of sort of like thinking how I would be able to like describe my feelings for it. And that's kind of how I feel about Koyo. It's just kind of like, I enjoyed it, but I don't really have any strong feelings about it. That's kind of, you know, the case that I'm learning with a lot of these albums down in the bottom half here is a lot of these albums we put on here because at some point we remember enjoying them. We re-listen to them. They're still good, but there's maybe no individual factor about them that really helps distinguish them in a way that I feel like I could argue for their inclusion in the top 20 versus the other ones that we've already moved up. That being said, Zweilix by Mental Cruelty, I think is on the higher end of one of the ones that I would select. While I think that it's probably not really doing anything outside the norm, it is a very, very good example of modern deathcore, and I think Mental Cruelty capture that very well. And there are some slightly interesting things that there's like a track in like the latter half where they fucking pull in like some weird fucking like horn instrument or some shit, and give it kind of
the
like
coolest thing that this record
Viking-ish
has
feeling.
Well, I mean, they have the track where it's essentially a German Viking chant.
I think this is exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I forget the title of it, but it's like predominantly a vocal driven track. And like you said, it's got like a little bit of stuff in the background, but there's like chanting and whatnot. It's just out of this world. I could definitely argue that one into the top.
It's one that I think I probably... All right, so if I'm looking at the rest of this list...
Hold on.
What?
Koyo, I never gave a re-listen to.
Okay.
Like, I just want to be open about that.
Okay,
I felt guilty about it. I just never made it to it. And it's a record I threw on here because I had a great time with it.
Here's the problem is that I really feel like we're arguing for an album that's just going to get cut in the next round right now. So it's almost like, now that we've spoken about all of them, is anything really need to be moved up that's going to make the top 20? Like, that has a shot at the top 20. Not that should be in this fucking 45.
I think we should
I think the answer is no.
I think we should put something up.
All right, I'm going to literally just let you pick one then.
Scroll down. The Amity Affliction.
This is such a fucking
This is such a fucking stupid choice. Hot Milk deserved this so much.
Well, you have the option.
I know.
Are you
But
comfortable
like you
with
said,
deleting the rest of the albums that did not make this soft hard cut?
Are you seeing anything that's like a big miss here?
No.
Johnny Booth.
I don't think I'm taking Johnny Booth over some of the other metalcore records.
Point North is really good.
Not taking him
Cut
over
them
some
all.
of the other
Cut them
pop
all.
punk
Just
records.
cut them all.
All right.
And then there were 45. We're going to get down to 20.
45. I'm going to rattle them off real quick for everyone once again. In no particular order. Abeyance by Alt, 10,000 Gex by 100 Gex, A Gradual Decline of Morale by Kim Dracula, Daydreamer by Dead Lakes. Hold on. Are you seeing this shit?
No.
We got 46.
Oh my, no, you can't. You can't.
All right, we got 46.
This is like, no, this is
What?
Goblet
This is
of
like
Fire, where we got Harry Potter.
Sure.
Like we already pulled Cedric Diggory.
Okay.
You know?
I would love to see how you tie this together.
So we have our one Hogwarts candidate for the Triwizard Cup.
Oh, I see. Yes, I see now.
But we've
Yes,
pulled a
thank you.
second Gryffindor,
All right, thank you.
a second
That's-
representative for Hogwarts.
That's enough out of you, Taylor Swift. All right.
The Amity Affliction in here. And if, listen, spoiler alert, Harry wins at the end.
Spoiler alert.
Harry
The Amity
wins the
Affliction isn't winning
Triwizard
the end of
Cup.
this.
Also, Cedric Diggory dies. That felt like a real big spoiler, but I feel like it's been 40 years, so.
Ahem. Abeyance by Alt, 10,000 Gex by 100 Gex, A Gradual Decline of Morale by Kim Dracula, Daydreamer by Dead Lakes, Calling the Dogs by Citizen, Fatalism by Polaris, Evergreen by Paris, Hotel Blue by Broadside, Heritage by Distant, Intellectual Property by Waterparks, Losing What We Love by Knuckle Puck.
May This Keep You Safe from Harm by Off-Road Minivan, Hard Reset by The Word Alive, One More Time by Blink-182, Mundane Magic by A Story Told, Problems by Not a Toy, Ready to Eat by Beauty School Dropout, Reflections by Caskets, Retrovision by Honey Revenge, Ruckus by Movements.
Sanguivore by Creeper, So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy, Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes, Super Bloom by Silent Planet, Superliminal by Locket, Symptoms of Survival by Dying Wish, Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token, Tether by Of Mice and Men, The Best Part About Being Human by Bearings, The Death We Seek by Currents, Heaven or by Invent Animate, The Main by The Main, The Noble Art of Self-Destruction by Holding Absence, The Seventh Sun by Buried Tomorrow, The Surface by Beartooth, This Is Why by Paramore, Truth Decay by Yumi at 6, Void Eternal by Nothing Nowhere, What If I Break by Windwalkers.
Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan, Zig by Poppy, Amongst the Low and Empty by Signs of the Swarm, Director's Cuts by To the Grave, Shame on Me by Catch Your Breath, Freak of Nature by Heart Attack Man, and everyone's favorite, Not Without My Ghosts by The Amity Affliction.
All right, here's how it works now.
We're on to phase 2 of 4?
We are going to take turns picking what we think should be in the top 20 from our now list of 46.
Which means 26.
26 will get cut this round. Yeah, that's correct. And then we'll have 20 and we'll just have to rank them. Then it'll be done.
All right. Well, I'll make some tough decisions here for us. Scroll down.
You're moving up right now. You're aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware of this.
Okay.
I am aware of this. I just kind of want to get a full feel for everything here. One more time. Oh, I see it. I see it. Do you want to know my choice for the first record? I'd like to bump to the 20.
Let's do it.
So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy.
Huh. So we're doing fuck shit early.
Fuck shit early.
We're locking in Fall Out Boy.
Sam. Little does he realize the fatal mistake he made at the top of the year when he told me that Heaven, Iowa was a bad song. And ever since that moment,
I was wrong about that.
You fucked up, Sam. You fucked up, and you're about to find out because you don't realize yet how hard I'm about to fucking ride for that record.
10,000 Gex by 100 Gex.
Not sure what I want to choose next. Let's go. I want to go with The Main by The Main.
The Main by The Main. Before we get too far, let's go ahead and just move. Take me back to
let's get a couple of people up there real quick.
Let's not pretend
some handshake agreements here.
Yeah. Let's not get so far that somebody that has to get cut to make room.
Let's not do anything we're gonna regret here.
Okay. I need One More Time by Blink-182.
Ooh. All right. Give me Sanguivore by Creeper. Do we have to start talking through the thought process on any of these?
Not yet. Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes is getting moved up with Creeper.
And just like that, we're at 7.
See, there's still plenty here. There are albums down here at the bottom that I don't think should be in the top 20, which is why I think the cutting process still needs to be continued here.
What does this mean? Are we cutting before locking?
No.
Okay,
no.
all right.
No. I just don't think we're at a point where we need to be making strong arguments.
Let me see the bottom half of this list a little bit. Get a better feel for this. I'll do it. I'll go Void Eternal by Nothing Nowhere.
I'm going to choose A Gradual Decline in Morale by Kim Dracula.
I just realized we're missing someone.
Oh, who is it?
That I don't think was ever even nominated. Just scroll through to make sure I didn't accidentally overlook them here. No, I don't think we did. Nope, there they are. Let's move The Surface by Beartooth up.
Okay, well don't skip.
Because if it ain't Beartooth's year, I'm not sure whose year it is. And just like that, we're at 10.
I'll help you. Heavener by Invent Animate.
Go ahead and push Holding Absence up.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, you want to move up Holding Absence, which is bingo.
So we moved up The Surface, Heavener, Noble Art of Self-Destruction.
The Best Part About Being Human by Bearings. That puts us at 13.
Yes, it does. It'd be weird if we didn't put Super Bloom up on this list, so I'm just gonna volunteer that up there.
$14. I cannot envision a list where Beauty School Dropout and their album Ready to Eat isn't on it.
My next one doesn't have too far to travel. Let's push alt up. Abeyance. We have 4 more.
There are some notable albums.
There's
still
some fucking
sitting down
notable albums
at the bottom of this list. I think I need Zig by Poppy.
I think we need Dead Lakes on this list.
That puts us at 18. Do we need to now sit and have a conversation about 2 more albums that'll be brought up here?
How good are we feeling about these 18 right now? Is there anything on here that's like...
Oh, are you saying there's anything up here that you think needs to get moved down?
Like, are we talking crazy?
I think if we started to have that conversation, you would be unhappy with me very quickly.
Well, wouldn't we have to? Because unless we don't,
all right,
we automatically
let's do this.
lock...
Let's get it to 25. How do you feel about that?
Let's get it to 25. Let's get it to 25.
All right.
I'm feeling great.
My next pick...
Interesting. My next...
What If I Break by Windwalkers?
My next pick is Hot Mulligan. Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan?
I would follow that up with Truth Decay by You Me at 6, so I'm going to grab both of them. Which puts us at 21. 4 more albums.
That ain't bad. Fatalism by Polaris.
Fuck.
Did I choose your next?
No, I just feel like now it's starting to feel
real.
Yeah.
I am shocked you haven't moved some of these up, and I'm trying to figure out if you're playing chess and trying to get me to spend a point.
I would.
Or if you somehow
Never.
do not feel extremely strong about certain albums that I would have thought would be your number one with a bullet.
All right. I have 2 choices left.
Well, that would mean I have 1.
That is correct. I'm next, and then you're next.
You
and
sure
then I'm
you don't
next,
want me
so
to
I
have 2?
2.
I feel like I'm the one thinking here a little more rationally.
Fuck. I think The Death We Seek by Currents needs to be on here.
I'm gonna trust you to make the right choice here, which is why I will be the one to push Intellectual Property by Water Parks up, because it would be insane for this not to at least hit 24 or 25 on this list.
So
And now
you
just
like
have to do the
I
right
have to
thing.
make
I
the right choice.
threw the ball up, and you just have to slam it into the hoop.
Okay. Starting at the bottom here. Not Without My Ghost by the Amity Affliction will not be making this. Freak of Nature by Heart Attack Man will not be making this. Shame on Me by Catch Your Breath and Director's Cut by To the Grave will not be making this.
If you don't choose it, I'm sacrificing one of my former picks.
Amongst the Low and Empty by Signs of the Swarm will not be making this. This Is Why by Paramore. This Is Why by Paramore will not be making this. The Seventh Son by Bury Tomorrow and Tether by Of Mice and Men will not be making this. Symptoms of Survival by Dying Wish should be making this.
It should be like this.
But I'm having difficulty selecting it right now. Fuck.
This is a hard list.
All right, let me take a look at what's up here and like if I would choose a similar album over what an album down below has to offer. Oh, fuck me. There's some good shit down here.
Some really good shit down here. You thought cutting the last 25 off this list that were absolutely not making it was tough?
Fuck.
This is harder than that.
I think it has to be Hotel Blue by Broadside for me.
Would you like to know if I'll still be sacrificing one of my picks?
Will you?
I will not be sacrificing one of my picks. It was Hotel Blue by Broadside that I really needed on here.
All right, here's okay. We're going to do this one by one real quick, starting again at the bottom. Are we in agreement that Not Without My Ghost by the Amity Affliction is not making this list?
Number 46 is probably as far as this record should get, while admitting that it was one of the best times I had with the record all year long.
Freak of Nature by Heart Attack Man.
Really insane highs and some kind of forgettable valleys on here.
Shame on Me by Catch Your Breath.
Not their year.
For What It's Worth, an incredible debut record.
Definitely.
Director's Cuts by To the Grave.
Should be on this list.
I think that this gets close, but doesn't quite nail it. It's worth noting that like Found Footage clearly stands out among the track listing, and I think when a band shows me like the levels of creativity that they're capable of, it really tends to overshadow everything else that I think that doesn't measure up.
Yeah. It's one of those records where you found yourself repeatedly playing that one song, and then the rest of it just wasn't quite at that level.
I enjoyed it. It just, again, you're right, not at that level. Amongst the Low and Empty by Signs of the Swarm.
This one feels like a miss, not including.
I really enjoyed this record. I just think this is another case where it's like, hey, I had a lot of fun with it, but I don't know when I compare it against the other albums up there that I have a strong argument for why it should be there over one of them.
That's fair.
This is a strange one.
This one is insane to me. I remember listening to this at the top of the year, and granted, it was only February, and I'm sitting there like, I see a reality where this is the best record of this year. And then I didn't want anything to do with it for the rest of the year. The remix album comes out, and it's just full of artists that I don't really spend any time with or particularly look to spend time with. And suddenly, like, I've got a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. And then I'm comparing it directly to something like So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy, which really triggers a, like it just sparks, like, a lot of emotion in me and nostalgia. And this does too, kind of, but I just don't feel this record as deeply comparatively to Fall Out Boy, and for whatever reason that is the record I directly compare it to.
Yeah, it's impossible not to. It's listen, you forever you
They're the
compare
big dogs.
Paramore to Fall Out Boy to My Chemical Romance to Panic at the
Panic
Disco.
at the Disco.
I think the thing with this record is that while there are some songs on here that I really do love, there are some moments on here that just feel like a bit of a slog to get through. I think in the ways that, like, Fall Out Boy tries new things on So Much for Stardust are much more fascinating and exciting than the style of newer Paramore in a lot of ways.
It's
I
just
like-
not for me.
Yeah, it's kind of what it is overall. I just don't think, like, as a full record, it's as compelling as individual moments.
I think it, like, lyrically, I think it's the strongest the band has ever sounded.
Mhm.
I think it's got some of their strongest songs, period. Zoom out a little bit, look at the full record, and I'm just way more cold on it than I expected to be this time.
You're right.
Earlier in the year.
Months later, I just don't have the same, like, passion for it. The seventh song by Bury Tomorrow unfortunately finds itself in a year where there are some incredibly strong metalcore records to contend against. So while I think it's a big jump forward for Bury Tomorrow and it's really exciting for them, I don't think it quite hangs with some of these other records.
Yeah, I wanted this record to do so much better for me during re-listens.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say I didn't like it, but I just couldn't convince myself that this is a record I have to take over many other records on here. And similarly about Tether by Of Mice and Men, which I think I have... it's funny. I remember the last record, Defy? What the fuck was it called?
No, the one before this was like the wispy paintbrush strokes.
Right. Whatever that
and
record
fucking
was.
birds
The
and
last
shit. Why the
record.
fuck can't I think of the name of it? Go ahead, talk.
The last record, I really... Like, I thought this record was better than that one when I
Echo?
first heard it. Echo sounds right, maybe.
It sounds right, maybe. I
And
agree.
then like, I spent more time with this one, and it just didn't really click for me the way it did the first couple of weeks it was out. It's not to say, like, whatever. It's still one of the better records I heard this
It's like
year.
an album I really appreciate.
Yeah. But it's just not cutting it.
Symptoms of Survival by Dying Wish actually
Should be on the fucking list.
I just feel like in terms of, like, consistency of level of enjoyment from second to second across this album, it really does not waver. There is no point in this record where I ever felt let down by the proceedings. Like, it is just fucking out of the gate such an insane fucking roller coaster ride. A real fucking showcase for the
Additionally-
talent of this band.
Talent we weren't 100% sure was there, as far as, like, this isn't the Dying Wish that we left off with on the record prior. This is a Dying Wish that took a couple more chances, a few more risks, and it paid off. It sounds phenomenal.
I moved them
They
up. I'm
should
not
be
ready.
up.
I'm
They
not
should
ready
be
to
up.
cut them just yet.
I see two more bands on here that should be up too.
Interesting. Superluminal by Locket.
It should be, but it ain't.
I think this is a case where Locket is just in contention with some bands that I think there's a level of kindness I want to make sure I phrase everything when we're talking about albums that I really like. But when we're talking about these albums that feel very heavy and that, like, they're trying to, like, get across these really, like, strong emotions and they really want to make you, like, sort of, they're meant to sort of help you develop, like, perspective. And there are so many shades of emo to them on so many levels. I just think there are albums that are very similar to it that are a bit stronger. I would argue that Ruckus by Movements is one of them.
This is one of those records where, depending on your mindset, I think I was just going to defer to you. And it's one of those records where I thought you were going to come in talking all sorts of like, Ruckus's AOTY. And I could have seen myself in that scenario just thinking like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Like just based on like your attitude or whoever, it doesn't have to be you. If someone came in here and told me Ruckus is the best album of the year, I'd be like, yeah, what am I thinking? 100%, you're right. And then like I'm trying to argue it myself and I just don't really see it moving it up. And like it's full of tracks that I absolutely adore. There's no denying that. It has like you said, there's definitely an emotional gravity to this record consistently throughout the entire piece.
Movements are very fucking good at what they do. Yeah. Extremely fucking good at what
it's got some incredibles. Lead Pipe, fucking
Tightrope.
Tightrope.
Coeur d'Alene.
So fucking good.
There's a lot of very good tracks on this record. Is it telling that both of us are looking at it and the fact that neither of us picked it mean we're just dragging it up to be...
Delete it.
I mean, we could do... I guess it's the same argument as Dying Wish, but... Retrovision by Honey Revenge, I think, has some of the best songs I've heard all year, but is not consistent throughout the entirety of the album.
I disagree. I think it's extremely consistent. I think that this album actually probably deserves another look there at towards the top, but I'm not gonna go to war for it. I think it's really good. I don't disagree, of course, that Airhead and many of the other songs on there are really good and definitely some of the best of the year. But
Reflections by Caskets, this is one of those albums that's just like, it's candy. You know what I mean? Like this style of like really catchy post-hardcore is right up my alley. I just, once again, don't know that there's one particular aspect of this record that I think really helps it stand out in 2023 over the other albums that we've already chosen.
It's a really good Caskets record. I remember being down on whatever the last one was called, like Old Souls or some shit like that. I'm probably way off.
Right. No, that sounds so correct.
And then like this one comes out and like I'm hesitant about it, even though like I like the singles and I hear all of it. And I'm like, yeah, this is damn fucking good. And I realize Caskets is just flat out one of my favorite bands, but you're not wrong. A little, for being as emotional as it is, it's definitely a little bit of popcorn at times.
I kind of wish it pushed further in some ways.
The problem Caskets, it's a good problem to have. The problem they have is that a lot of their songs just sound the same or that they follow a similar formula and it works for them. But as far as like a full record, it just seems like a collection of singles type thing.
Right. We need one or two tracks on here that really like make the album feel like more of a record and less of like a collection of singles.
Yeah.
Right. Like you need to push one end of the spectrum a little harder.
That said, if I checked, I'm sure this is probably one of the albums I spent the most amount of time with all year long.
Problems by Not a Toy, I actually think is low-key a very flawless record.
It's low-key very, very flawless. I think we're actually talking like every band I'm looking at right now has got a pretty strong argument if we're bumping anyone up.
No. Disagree.
Not
but if we're moving everyone up just to cut them in the next fucking round, then it's like, why not just pay them their respects now? And then
are we officially at 26?
Yeah, but we need to get down to 20. So we're not in like incredible shape. And now you're talking about, well, it's not. And now everything you move up has to contend with the albums that like our gut told us definitely needed to be in the 20.
That Word Alive album is so damn fucking good.
I think it is staggeringly good when compared to the older Word Alive albums, but I think it struggles a little bit when compared to some of the other albums that came out this year. Fair?
Fair. Not a Toy is so fucking good. A Story Told. A
Story Told for me is fucking comfort food. I can listen to that album a million times over, but I don't think it's as good as the one they put out before it.
Okay, I'll let you have it. There's no record that like makes me feel as warm and fuzzy inside this year as that one does.
It's my reset record. It's like when I'm done listening to everything else, let me just throw on Mundane Matt. It's like I can almost just turn my brain off and just like enjoy myself. Like it's very easy listening to me. But I think factoring it against the album they released prior, it does not quite stand up to that. One I'm surprised is still down here is May This Keep You Safe from Harm by Off-Road Minivan, which I was under the impression you were going to go to bat for heavily.
I mean, yes. But at this point, like, you're right. Like, at some point, am I going to bat really? Am I wasting ammo going to bat for something that ultimately gets cut at 27th anyway?
It is a masterclass in replicating a certain era of like the emo genre, and I think it does a really respectable job of that. And
it's impressive.
I think it's I just think overall it's really impressive. I think its issue once again would be hanging against the other albums that I feel significantly more strongly about. Similarly, I think Losing What We Love by Knuckle Puck is one of the most, again, effortlessly nostalgic albums that I heard all year, where it really manages to capture like a certain period of the scene without almost even trying to do just that. And I think it's a combination of just like Knuckle Puck really leaning into what makes them good and excelling at every aspect of the band, so that this to me feels like the peak of Knuckle Puck in particular. I just like, this is the best they've ever sounded to me. I think that they really managed to capture and maintain a very strict tone throughout this record that really makes it just like flow very well. This for me is probably the hardest cut because I think that it is a very strong overall record. And the hardest part for me in choosing this and moving it up was just that, like, it again enters into the conversation of the records around it that do things similarly that I think are stronger. But this one was hard not to pick.
It's a great record. It's not my hardest cut. I think ultimately that's Evergreen by Paris, which I had a feeling heading into this was going to be an album that I would struggle to argue for.
I prioritized re-listening to that because you told me to, and I really enjoy the energy of that album. I really just enjoying how I enjoy how in your face that album is. I think that when I compare it to Use Me is where it loses its luster a bit. Where Use Me for me was perfect, and this feels a little bit like that like a not as good version of that album for me. So it's very similar, but it doesn't quite hit the same highs, is how I came away from this record feeling.
Okay. I very much agree that the energy on it is A1. I think it's greatest feature. I do think that there's a certain level of vulnerability, though, present throughout the entire record that I appreciate as well. I think it sounds incredible production-wise. Mm-hmm. And I'm under the impression a lot of it was Lynn who produced it. The singer for this band, Lynn Gunn. And it's got some of my favorite songs of the year, whereas that's ultimately where I kind of land as far as like, that's my argument. It's just like, man, that's what I'm cutting is like 3 of my favorite songs of the year, but it's okay. And I think at this point I'm looking at these final 4 and I'm sort of at peace with all of them.
All right. Talk Heritage by Distant real quick.
Just one of the deathcore records that actually stuck with me this year. It's not to say that there weren't plenty. There were definitely a handful. Heritage is one of them, but it's probably kind of just on the lower end of what those were.
For the record, once we're done here, I think we've cut pretty much every deathcore album. Unless you want to consider Dying Wish to be... Am I crazy? We cut To the Grave. We cut Mental Cruelty. We cut...
What are we doing,
Distant now.
bro? What are we doing?
It was a light staff in the kitchen this year for deathcore.
Realistically, if we started at the top, this would have been eliminated sooner than stuff like, Signs of the Swarm or whatever.
Yeah.
But I had a really good time with it. Great album. Citizen, I think your argument is that you didn't like it as much as the last one. On re-listen, had a really good time with this one still, but ultimately I think it's probably more of a popcorn record than more of their fans would give it credit for.
I think there are a lot of bands in this scene who have reached a level where their floor is very high, and even when their albums aren't as good or aren't as impactful as their other albums, they're still very good records. I think Calling the Dogs is a very good record. I just like Life in Your Glass World was astoundingly good for me.
We've deleted 20 more. 20 more. I'm losing my voice. Somehow we're doing it going from 75 to 46 and now for some reason to 26.
All right, let me read the 26 right now that we need to cut down to 20.
13 and 13, baby.
So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy, 10,000 Gex by 100 Gex, The Main by The Main, Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token, One More Time by Blink-182, Sanguivore by Creeper, Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes, Void Eternal by Nothing Nowhere, A Gradual Decline of Morale by Kim Dracula, The Surface by Beartooth, Heavener by Invent Animate, The Noble Art of Self-Destruction by Holding Absence, The Best Part About Being Human by Bearings, Super Bloom by Silent Planet, Ready to Eat by Beauty School Dropout, Abeyance by Alt, Zig by Poppy, Daydreamer by Dead Lakes, What If I Break by Windwalkers, Truth Decay by Yumi at 6. Sorry, I jumped too far ahead.
I just didn't even think. I'll do the last 6 here. Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan, Fatalism by Polaris, The Death We Seek by Currents, Intellectual Property by Waterparks, Hotel Blue by Broadside, and Symptoms of Survival by Dying Wish at number 26.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think from this point forward, this is going to suck.
This is going to suck hard. Because realistically, there are 6 on here that don't make the cut. And then it's going to get violent.
How do you want to go about this? Be honest with me. Look at this list and tell me one that wouldn't make your top 20. Let's start there.
Ooh, you're not going to like me.
Do it.
One More Time by Blink-182.
You're so fucking wrong. It's insane. All right, here's why you're wrong.
20.
Here's why you're wrong. Not only... Here's why you're wrong. Because not only is it in the top 20, it's actually close to top 3. It is arguably in the top 3.
It's not 8 or 2.
Let's talk a little bit about Blink-182. Let's talk about Blink-182 for a second here. Mm-hmm. Never been more down bad in the history of a fucking band. So fucking down bad, we're doing Fortnite dances in our music videos. Like, it is an embarrassing point in our lives to be a fan of Blink-182. To even say you're familiar with Blink-182. To even say that you one time enjoyed Blink-182. And somehow, this band manages to pull it all back together.
What else? What else do they do?
They fire Skiba. They bring back DeLong. And not only...
Whose last name you didn't know how to pronounce until last week.
Do they... Thank you for the corrections, YouTube. Not only do they put out a new album with their original lineup, but somehow, beyond any rational, theoretical possibility that this could happen, they capture the magic of the entirety of their career in a singular album.
All right.
It is not only
keep your pants
is
on,
it a masterclass,
put your jacket back on,
is an astounding achievement in Blink-182's career, but they come back after 3 years of the brand new wave of pop punk, essentially managed and directed by Travis Barker.
Yes.
To have him then sort of give that same direction back to Blink-182 and fucking beyond all possibility. Blink-182 are better than the vast majority of the bands who thought they were better than Blink-182. Like Blink-182 actually came back and showed everyone how it was done, and they had fucking like 0.1% chance in the timeline. Doctor Strange was at Travis Barker's house. Like, there's 1 in 20 billion chances this album
182
fucking slaps this hard. And this is the one universe where it did.
The one timeline.
Astoundingly good album. The fuck out of here. Try again.
You listen here and you listen good, bitch. Okay?
Try again.
What I'm doing right now is I'm just poking around, okay?
I got endless energy.
I'm trying to see.
I can do this all fucking day.
I'm trying to see what sets you off the most, and then I'll make my move, okay? What if I break
all
my
fucking day.
windwalkers?
All right, listen. This one I might be able to move
And
a
there
little
it is.
bit. Because here's the thing. It's just like, for me, what's astounding about this album is just that it's so fucking good.
It came out of
and it has
fucking
no
nowhere.
Right. Like, I remember this band, right? Like, fucking 5 years ago, different vocalist. They were neat. Like, I enjoyed them. Then this album comes out, and where the fuck has this been? Like, it's incredible. It's just like one fucking melody and like breakdown and fucking everything is so unbelievably clean. Just like, I can't believe how good this album is. Now, all that being said, I don't know that the entirety of this record really has like a story to tell other than I really enjoy listening to it, which it's it this far.
The best version of that Catch Your Breath, that Archetypes Collide, that Dark Divine record that we got this year, just the absolute best version of that sound. They pulled it off extremely well.
Yeah, it's fucking Octane.
I'm not telling you kill it.
Bad Omens inspired ass core, and I think it's really good, but no. We still have 26 albums here. So if you see a crack in the dam, I think we're going to have to go ahead and like
look away.
Cut.
25.
All right, respectfully, I think the last album that made this list needs to fall off of it. I think Symptoms of Survival is a fucking just lovely buffet of breakdowns. And I really appreciate it for that. But I think bigger picture, it did not resonate with me personally outside of just how fun it is to headbang to.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Not against it. I'm for it. I'm for this.
4 albums need to be cut.
Now I think this is we've officially reached the hardest part of the episode.
There are some on here that are so clearly not going anywhere that it's almost like I'm not even gonna bother with like fucking the top 10. Like I don't think I see anything in here personally that I would argue to take off. You? I know you already made one, but that's not going anywhere. I fucking promise you.
Let me see the middle.
I think the top 10 is probably relatively safe.
You want Zig by Poppy to make this list, and you're not man enough to look me in the eye and tell me that Motorbike is one of the best songs of the year.
I came around a little bit on Motorbike. If it'll help
Shut
me keep
the
Poppy on
fuck
this list. I just think like if we're talking about something that I just really fucking appreciate is when an artist swings for the fences. And I think Poppy really swings for the fences. And I think that's even more It's made even more obvious when you compare it to the last Poppy album, which feels like the exact opposite of that, whereas it feels like an artist that's been completely tethered to the system and is sort of being fed what they should sound like. And this is speculation, right? But that album felt like it stripped Poppy of her soul. And this album feels like Poppy finding that soul again and then just like letting it fucking like explode outward. And there's so many just like ideas. And the fact that I think like 98% of it sticks is worth celebrating.
Okay.
Poppy for me feels like an artist that is visionary. So even if it doesn't work for everybody, I just feel like half of the artists that we talk about don't take the chances that Poppy's willing to take.
I like this argument. You're good. I wasn't nominating it off the
I think
list.
we're at the point where things need to be argued for.
That's fine. That's all well and good, Sam.
I'm just saying. I feel fucking passionate about some of these albums.
What cracks are you seeing, pal?
You're not going to like it.
Oh, I don't like it.
And I'm trying to stay away from it because I don't want to get into it. Because this might be like
go
a
ahead and
Blink
scroll right
182
past it,
argument.
buddy.
I want to look at the bottom half of this list and sort of like just kind of all right. Fuck. I don't like throwing one of my own out there, but what are your feelings on Truth Decay by Yumi at 6?
I would say of the 24 we're looking at, this one benefited greatly from the re-listen. I remember being super down on Truth Decay, and that may not have come across on the review at the top of the year, but I spent zero time with it for the rest of this year, all the way up until re-listen started. And like, you threw it on the, like, just in the car one day, threw it on, and like, suddenly it's all hitting.
This has been
And like a week later, I go home and I'm at home and I'm like, I just threw it on again, and I'm like, oh, this is really working for me.
This has been a very easy one for me to fall back into. I think Yumi at 6 sort of laid out their mission statement, and they really said, you know, if we want to contend with like the talent around the scene, we're going to have to perform at a level that is equivalent to our peak. And I think they literally came out and did it.
Yeah.
I think Yumi at 6 absolutely did exactly what they said they were going to do, and they put out one of the best records of their career.
Now, the question is it enough?
I know.
And I don't know if I have the answer. I think my heart says it is enough, but my gut tells me it is not enough. And I'm not sure if you feel the same way or not.
Where do you sit on The Death We Seek by Currents?
A record that, again, did not at all it didn't really stick with me when I first heard it. Re-listens have benefited this album greatly.
It is insane how well this record sounded the third and fourth time around for me as well.
But it's like, it's not specifically the third and fourth time. It's like the third and fourth time in a row during re-listens, because suddenly, like, you'll finish and then you're like, well, let's run it back. It's a shorter album. Let's just play it again, get, a better feel for it. And then like, there's a part of you that wants to argue to throw it on for like a fifth time.
It's just
It's like a record you just suddenly can't put down.
It's so insanely tight. So much of it is so incredibly satisfying. I think Currents are one of these bands who like, they like hold the torch for like an era of metalcore really well. Like, in a way that like almost makes them, it's like as bands expand out in different directions and bands fall off and stuff like that, you sort of like, you come out of an era and you got a few less, Polaris is actually very similar for what it works. Like Polaris and Currents for me were like, you throw them in there with like Wage War, and it was like, oh man, it's like these three bands coming up in metalcore right now. Like they're at the tip of everybody's tongue. Like people, Fit for a King, like people can't shut up about this band. And then you get a few years away from that, and like there are a couple more albums deep, and like the genre shifted a little bit, and like you got some new faces and they're doing different things. And now it's like the Bad Omen style of bands that are like a little bit more popular. But then I look at a band like Currents and I'm like, man, but they've just stayed there tweaking. and they've got it down really fucking tight at this point.
No, I fully agree, and you're right. It is the same argument for Polaris, and not the two albums I was alluding to alongside Truth Decay that really benefited from re-listens. They did. They did not benefit the most in a way that one other album on this list did. But like those two records, I couldn't get enough of. And suddenly I'm looking at them a very different way than I expected to.
They made me like appreciate metalcore again in like some weird way. I was like, have I been sleeping on this genre a little bit lately?
R/metalcore right now fucking punching the air every time we say something like I don't know where I want to go with the
It
rest
gets
of
hard.
this.
The problem is that when you start to look at albums that are similarly stylized, then that's where you feel like you're gonna have to come in and cut, right?
Can we address the elephant in the room?
Go ahead.
Water parks.
I struggle with this one a lot.
What's going on here?
I struggle with this one a lot. It didn't quite pop off the same way when I re-listened to it. And there are a lot of aspects to it that I still feel like I really appreciate. I still feel like Austin Knight is one of like the most fascinating frontmen in this scene. And that comes through in like a Water Parks album. Like they're not so many pop punk albums, I think, are like, how do I put it? They're maybe a little surface level. And I feel like there's so much depth to a Water Parks album. And so much of it feels like it's hidden behind like this tongue-in-cheek approach. But like the deeper you dig, like the more there is to just chew on there. And it's like that against whether I feel like the pop punk of it all, like if the hooks are as big as like I want them to be, if these individual songs feel as anthemic, or it's like I appreciate so much about Water Parks, but I don't know that. I thought coming into this, when I was re-listening to the albums, this was my number 2 with a bullet. And then after I re-listened to it, I didn't feel as passionate about it. Though that being said, if you kind of like sneaking out of heaven onto the end of that, the way that they have on Spotify, it does sort of like strengthen that album a little bit, even more so.
Well, I would hope. It's a good song just in general.
But all that being said, I just like, I don't think ultimately that I have the same connection to this one as I did to Greatest Hits, which for me was like, or still is, the defining record in this band's catalog so far.
It's tough when you turn away some of these songs, like what we're essentially doing. Like we're turning our backs on Funeral Grey, on Ritual, Sneaking Out of Heaven.
I'm not saying cut it. I'm just saying that I might feel stronger about other albums.
Okay.
That's the discussion we're having.
I'm not sure. I'm still on the fence with it. I'm not sure if I want to hard push back against you or agree.
Hotel Blue by Broadside.
You could talk me into this being the best album of the year, and I would just nod in agreement.
Okay.
But I don't know ultimately where I land on it. It's got literally 5 of the best singles of the year. That's got to count for something. I think it's...
You were talking about features on that Word Alive album earlier, which is something that we celebrated a lot during
Quietly, this is more
our
stacked.
review. But yes,
Yeah.
Quietly, this is somehow more stacked.
Yeah.
Just the Magnolia Park, the home team, and
Devin.
Honey Revenge.
Yep. And then like, man, Blue is an extremely touching song. I don't know. This is one of those records where like it's a late year push. Middle of November. I don't know if that's like enough time to chew. I'm not punishing it for that reason, but you know, like I clearly spent way more time with other records this year. But I'm going to look back on this year and I'm probably going to think about Broadside a fair bit.
Why would I watch by Hot Mulligan?
Something that took me a little by surprise that you said a moment ago was that you expected Water Parks to be your number 2 with a bullet. I expected that to be your number 3 with a bullet, second only to this record. Why would I watch by Hot Mulligan? There's few bands I can think of that shouldn't work as well as Hot Mulligan work.
What a pitch. I love this.
Hot Mulligan's, like, if you isolate those vocals, they shouldn't work. And then you throw them over those instrumentals, you pay a little closer attention to what we're singing about. And holy shit, is it hard to deny Hot Mulligan's one of the more just unique bands out there?
Nobody is the material that is used to fill out a Hot Mulligan song is just like things that wouldn't even cross the mind of 99% of the bands we listen to. Like, it's almost the mundaneness of some of it, but then also like the deep truth to some of that mundaneness as well. Like, there's something so slice of life.
And that happens to be like the zone that this band just happens to excel in.
And they're incredible storytellers.
I'm not going to lie. I think it would be a mistake for something like Hot Mulligan.
For the record, I'm not necessarily pitching cuts here. I'm just trying to get a feel for you on all of these albums. I feel like where we're ending up right now is that we're not willing to cut anything, and this is becoming a problem.
Say it. Say what you want to say. You don't have me fooled for a second.
Fatalism by Polaris.
No, that's not the conversation I want to have right now.
What do you mean? What's the conversation you want to have right now?
Say what you want to say. What's on your mind?
I don't want to say.
Say it.
I don't think The Noble Art of Self-Destruction by Holding Absence is a top 20 album of the year.
That's not what I expected to be on your mind.
I didn't want to say it. I haven't wanted to say it. I really don't even want to have this conversation, but it's ultimately how I feel about that record. And it's not something I ever thought I would say. And I think the biggest issue is that as far as I'm concerned, Holding Absence is a top 10 band in the scene, period. And that being said, I look at them like I look at other bands who I think are performing at their peak, and I hold them to an incredibly high standard. And for me, Holding Absence debut record was earth-shifting. Their sophomore album is, as far as I'm concerned, a black Sharpie hard line.
You fucked yourself with Earth Shattering?
A black Sharpie hard line in the timeline of this scene. Like, mark where you were when that fucking album came out. Our album of the year when it released. And I think The Noble Art of Self-Destruction is not as emotionally resonant or as powerful of those two records. And the biggest downfall for this album is comparing it to the two records that came before it, especially The Greatest Mistake of My Life, which I think is a fucking hard-coded classic in this scene.
That's one of the bigger things to highlight. As far as Holding Absence here, it's their competition's not like Bearings or Poppy. Really, it's themselves. We're not competing with Zig or The Best Part About Being Human. We're competing with The Greatest Mistake of My Life, which was the AOTY for 2021. And that's a different argument entirely, right? Like that's like things are different stakes.
This album isn't bad by any means. I don't think Holding Absence have bad albums. I don't think they have bad songs in their bloodstream. Like they don't know how. I just don't think. I do think it just pales in comparison to the albums that came before it. And it's really hard for me to say that about a band that I really, really fucking adore. But I want to be honest when we're doing this in the same way that, a couple of years back, you and I like cut Don Broco from like the top 20. And we felt weird doing it because they're a band that we ride so fucking hard for.
Yeah.
And like almost like everything they do, we enjoy. But I want to make sure that I don't give bands a pass just because they happen to be my favorite band. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember some years back, there was a band who like, we really like, I forget who it was. And I was like, you know what? This band released like a top 1 or top 2 album a certain year. And now their floor, like they could release a bad album and it would still be number 12. At least, right? There
are bands where you and I kind of just feel that way about that. There are bands that feel so safe in terms of our own like adoration for them, like Ice Nine Kills and Don Broco, bands that we ride so hard for. Bad Omens at this point.
And what I was going to say is I've always regretted saying that because it's not really true. It's like, there could just be records that don't quite click with you that you would then just move on from, right?
Outside of this exercise, it's meaningless. But within this, I have to take another record and cut it. And I don't think I want to do that. I'm still going to have to do it with 3 other records after the fact, but you understand what I'm saying.
I don't know if I'm fully there with you here. I don't disagree, though, that I do think that the record before this one certainly stuck with me just a little bit more. There is some just embarrassingly good music on this record, between Honeymoon, the art, the fucking the brush and the marble. What the hell is it? The
Angel and the Marble.
The Angel and the Marble. Of course, Crooked Melody, the single. It's loaded. It is loaded. I just don't think that it's missing a connective tissue that the last one especially had. But I can't exactly quantify or describe to you what that is.
It's
and I say all this while telling you it's just it is one of the best records I heard this year. I just don't know if it's top 20.
It's its ability to devastate me. And I think this album didn't quite capture it. I don't like you putting me in the position where I have to say negative things about this album or this band.
You put yourself in that position. I thought you were going to go a different direction.
Where did you think I was going? Because I feel like there's something here that you want to talk about.
Maybe there's not.
What is it? Bring it up. We're not cutting anything. Like sooner or later we're going to have to, but you might as well bring it up.
I expected way more pushback on someone in particular. And I guess I'm happy I'm not hearing it. I've alluded to this earlier though. The album I think of this crop here that benefited the most from re-listens for me was by far So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy.
I can't fucking believe I'm agreeing with you, but I really am. Like, songs I thought I hated on that album fucking smacked.
It was like
I was so confused listening to that album. I felt like I was listening to a different record than the one I heard earlier this year.
It was like a late stage edition as far as preparing for the top 20 goes. Like,
there was part of me where I probably wouldn't have even re-listened if you hadn't reached out.
Right. So I listened to it and I'm sitting there like, I don't even remembering all of the lyrics to these songs, but I'm belting them all out alongside Patrick on the drive home from work today. And I'm just having the best time ever.
And I forgot, like, Pink Seashell.
Baby Annihilation?
Like, this album doesn't just settle for trying to make, the diehards happy. Like, it still goes out of its way to be like a little weird. I think So Much for Stardust has to be in the top 20.
It is. It's a record that absolutely should not work, and it really does. Like you said, Pink Seashell, you've got just this weird sample from like an Ethan Hawke like just talk he's having somewhere.
Yeah, it's like some weird like inspirational,
right?
Like, but it resonates so strongly.
Like the instrumental they put behind it, it's just gorgeous song. You've got Pete Wentz performing slam poetry again. Maybe not slam poetry, but poetry in some respect. And then Patrick Stump sounds fucking incredible on this album. Just incredible. There are songs on here I thought I flat out fucking hated. I remember saying it during the review. Bro, Flu Game, one of the worst songs I've heard all year long.
Same.
Garbage. I'm listening to it on the realist and I'm like, hey, yo, this is fucking
I
lit.
was so confused. I was like, did they go back and do like...
Did they tweak it? Did
right?
they fix?
Is this like the 2.0 version of this album?
The only thing that this album could potentially have going against it is they did a Water Parks and they retroactively, futuristically added a new closing track.
They didn't add We Started the Fire, right?
They did.
Why do I feel like I didn't? I thought, oh my God. I thought my Spotify just did that thing where it played like
the next song, right? So that is technically on
that's
there.
a strong argument for a cut right there. Because that's one of the worst songs I've heard in my fucking life.
Yes, sir. I'm looking at a lot of these and I can't cut them.
All right, well, sooner or later, you and I are going to have to cut 4 of these albums, and it has to be sooner than later, because we need to start discussing, like, ranking.
Do Water Parks and Broadside hang?
All right, let's look at the types of genre representation we have throughout here, right? If you were to look at cutting Water Parks and Broadside, who do you feel like supplants them? Bearings?
Bearings with a bullet.
I can't... it's funny. I talked about how, like, other pop punk bands are surface level. And low-key, that's Bearings. There's nothing here being said. But they say nothing with the elegance of, like... the fucking greatest performers in history. This album is like one of the most flawlessly enjoyable things I've listened to, period. Like, bands will spend their whole life trying to write a pop punk record this good and never come close.
For this band, effortless, like they did it in their sleep.
This is this is a diamond. I just like, there is not a blemish to be found on
I'm not
here.
pushing back. I'm not pushing back on this one.
I just want to make sure that I like... I don't trip over my own like defense here when I say that like I love this because it's one thing, but I prefer the other thing over it. You know what I mean? But the truth is that there's just something so like, I don't know, innocent about what Bearings have put together here. There's nothing complicated about it. It is just like distilled pop punk one after another, so fucking clean. But man, is it hard to cut Water Parks.
Hard to cut Broadside.
Yumi at 6.
Yep.
Dead Lakes?
I think that this Dead Lakes album is actually the album I spent the most amount of time with this year.
Okay.
And it is everything I could have possibly asked for after a very, very long wait between the EP that dropped. That was our introduction to the band. Up until this point, finally got Daydreamer. You got a single last year, Wrong Way, that initially didn't really do much for me. And then by the time it it's part of this album and it all drops like this past March or April. Suddenly one of my favorite tracks of the year. Had it released this year or had I spent much more time with it last year, it would have ended up on either top 20 if it was eligible. I don't know. There's just something so effortless about this band too. And part of it is, well, this isn't part of it, but I want to highlight it immediately. It's not really a concept album, but they tie so much of it together lyrically. There's constant references to just like cars driving fast, going the wrong way and like in the wrong lane, stuff like that. It's got just this very vivid imagery, and it's all like bolstered by this really interesting delivery. The singer isn't really like anything you've heard really in our scene, at least as far as like pop rock bands go. Just a real smooth delivery. It's got some really emotional songs. It's just my baby, Sam. I can't even explain it more than that. I think that Daydreamer is one of the best records of the year, and it's not like the best sounding record. Like I'm sure like the production could have been slightly, but stuff like that, you know, but it's just like one of my favorites of the year. I think we make it easy and we cut Water Parks and Broadside.
Water Parks, I think we've had the conversation about, and you know, it's just hard for me to really present why I think it should still be in the top 20, even though I felt so strongly about it when it first came out.
Water Parks.
Yeah, I still think it's a really great album. At this point, we're at a crossroads where we're cutting very, very good albums because there are other very, very good albums that I think I would choose to celebrate over them. I think I feel the same about Hotel Blue by Broadside. There are so many strong moments on here. I think Oliver Baxter absolutely knocks it out of the fucking park. I really feel like this band found the magic on this album. Man. Hold on.
They did find the magic on this album. Is it better than the You Me at 6 album?
No.
Really?
Not for me personally. You Me at 6 is such a fucking like... It's hard for me exactly to pinpoint what works about it so well, except being another one of these cases where it's just like one of these bands who is like so well known within this scene because they've put out such classic albums, and there's just one of these things where it's like they're showing why they're that bitch on the, you know what I mean? It's the same thing that I kind of feel with like Blink and Fall Out Boy. It's just like such a reminder that like these bands, when they're firing on all cylinders, they're a reason they are like just fucking like cultural like
Icons.
like pillars. Yeah.
At some point you just have to appreciate the greats.
And I don't necessarily think that means they should bounce out other bands who like are having a moment. It's just like it's hard when we start like playing them against one another.
I cannot believe that there are 3 albums we need to cut from this list.
Yeah, this is fucking brutal. All right. Fatalism by Polaris.
I feel pretty strongly about it.
There's such an underlying hope to that record. And this is like very similar argument as Currents. They feel like
they're honestly
part of
some
like,
of the best metalcore to offer this year, and I think that alone is enough sometimes.
And it's like the genre feels like such a dying breed in some ways sometimes, and Polaris just come in and show that like just a little fucking couple tweaks here and there, and it can be so clean. Here's my issue. I look at Polaris and I look at Currents, and I ask myself, would I take them over Silent Planet and Invent Animate and
It's not your only metalcore on here.
Beartooth?
Yeah.
And I don't think I would.
How about this? Do you take one over the other?
Polaris or Currents?
Yeah.
Personally, I think Currents is the stronger album.
So you didn't make it easy because I go Polaris.
Okay, well. All right.
What do we? How
all right, let me ask you this.
Let's kind of.
Can we revisit the noble art of self-destruction? Or are you feeling very strongly that needs to be in your 20?
Listen, if we've cut Barocco out of the 20 before, I guess it's gloves off, and anyone
I'm not saying you have
can
to.
go.
It sounds to me,
I don't know,
because we haven't talked about it, going back to the metalcore conversation, you feel pretty strongly about Abeyance by Alt.
Abeyance by Alt.
Abeyance. Fucking, yes. A Beyonce by Alt.
I just think that
For the record, I also feel very strongly about it.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
I'm not trying to like put you up against a wall here.
Well, I'm just sitting here like
I haven't brought it up because I also don't think it should be cut.
but like it's one of those records where maybe not heading into this episode, but heading into the year, man, I heard all the Alt singles initially and I was like, well, you can't win them all, Sharp Tone. And I was just like thoroughly unimpressed.
So fucking agree with you. It's crazy.
And you put it all together on one album, you play it front to back, and suddenly it's one of the greatest records I've heard all year long.
Bafflingly good.
And you've got moments that sound like psychedelic North Lane, and then other moments that give like some real Swancore energy, and at other times it's just like
it's such a strong
Thornhill.
Emotional core to the thing too. It's just like
there's a line on here.
It's one of the most unique records that I've listened to that like on its surface really doesn't like appear that way.
It's got so much variety again. There are moments on here that absolutely should never work, and yet they do. There's a line where the vocalist, this is on the song, I forget the name of it. The "You're the best thing from the past 3 years" is like the chorus that I have to sing about. I just forgot what the name of the song is, but there's a line on there where it's like, I love staying in and watching Harry Potter, like with that person that they're singing to. And it's just such a beautiful song that should absolutely not work. I guess we really have not even at all pulled up fucking YouTube once this episode, which is surprising.
I mean, a lot of these records, I don't know that.
You kind of know them front to back, you know?
Like with individual songs, that was one thing, but you know.
So the only good thing is what I was talking about. I tried to make a
really should have been
argument.
a given when we were singing the chorus there.
I mean, I tried to make a strong argument for Better Off Leaving during the top songs of 2023, that episode. Wraith, Back to Earth was that Northlane-ish song, just very like synthy, a little psychedelic.
Better Off Leaving is crazy. Friend in the Dark is crazy. I think
Friend in the Dark's got a crazy hook.
Good album. But that's kind of what
it's tight too, because it's 10 songs. Yeah. 10 songs of just like the greatest material of the year. Like, I can't cut that.
But I feel like what we're kind of saying here is there are things on here we are not willing to cut.
You're right. It's the top half of this list, and then like that album. What's the full argument? And I know I'm gonna regret this, so I'm just gonna kind of sit here,
sure,
and I'm gonna let you get it all out. 10,000 Gex.
All right, listen.
Walk me through that full album.
The thing is that like everything that like makes 100 gecs so great is also like ammunition for why you could argue they shouldn't be on this list. It's funny because I feel like you would
I
go
love this record, Sam.
I feel like the fucking thing with 100 gecs is that they're so silly you almost don't take them seriously. And alternatively, I think that's somehow like the point is that like 100 gecs have like they reflect music through the mirror of absurdity, right? And in that sense, you hear a song like Frog on the Floor or like whatever the fuck it's called, like My Tooth Hurts, and you're like, this is so dumb. Like, why is this on the record? But then at the same time, that's why it's on the record, because it's so dumb. And what 100 gecs are kind of trying to prove is this like fundamental idea that music can just be like really silly at a really good time and like just a really fun creative outlet. And then like through the course of that, they also managed to craft like some of the most like brilliantly like composed ideas stuff like Me 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 and Dumbest Girl Alive, Doritos and Fritos. Like, it's almost like this band stumbles upon brilliance over and over and over again. And there is absolutely nothing that I listen to that is anything like this.
I'll travel that.
I just
inquiring.
I appreciate it for like those reasons. I feel like so much of the music I listen to is it's so important to them that they be taken seriously and everything is serious and like this is how you're allowed to dress and this is what the genre is supposed to sound like and like these are the instruments you're allowed to play. And then 100 gecs is like, here's a song about a frog, you know. It's about 2.5 minutes long. There's nothing to it. It goes nowhere. Like
that's all the argument I need.
I don't even know why it's
all
on
the argument
album,
I need.
but that's exactly why it's on the album.
So
it's kind of mind blowing. I don't know.
You've got a late contender on this list, and I kind of want to walk through that one with you. Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes. You didn't listen to when it first dropped.
My relationship with Trophy Eyes has been so many people told me they're great, they turned me off of them. Where it was like, so many people told me that last album was like the second coming of pop punk, and I was like, it's not doing anything for me. Like, I feel like we're just two completely different people. And then like, John Floriani's solo, the vocalist for Trophy Eyes, solo EP came out, and I'm like, this is actually so much more my speed.
Yeah.
I really loved that EP. And now we swing back over to Trophy Eyes, and it's like, all right, the boys are back, and we got some new tracks, and it's like a full album. And I'm like, this isn't a priority for me, you know, like personally.
Right.
And I think, I'm almost positive, but I think we were off the week it came out because I specifically downloaded this album on my phone, which means I was probably going to be on a flight and needed something to listen to check out. And that's what dropped that week. And I never listened to it. I never even listened to it.
Me neither.
And then towards the end of the year, I kept seeing people mention it. Gotta listen to Suicide and Sunshine. New Trophy Eyes is incredible. Gotta check this out. And I'm like, fine. You know, we checked out like Sean when we were doing award nominations, and I'm like, yeah, this is insane.
Pretty good.
And I loved Blue Eyed Boy, and I had just never listened to anything. And then I went and I listened to the whole album, and holy shit, I don't think there's a more devastating record. There's no record that makes you just feel like you have to think about life itself in like a really difficult way, the way this record makes you think about it. And the way they make songs just elicit such a fucking like strong emotional like resonance inside of me, and I didn't, and it is like a recency bias thing. You're 100% correct, but it was a recency bias thing.
When you know
that I put through the fucking like paces, right?
Yep.
I didn't just say I listened to this album once to like, holy shit, yeah, this is gonna be on here. I'm like, all right, I listened to this album and I'm like, is it really that good? And I listened to it again and I'm like, holy shit, this might. And then I listened to it a third time, and I'm like, yeah, this is fucking incredible. And that's part of the reason why albums that like I was really, really high about earlier, like Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan and Intellectual Property by Water Parks, sort of like lost their luster a little bit because I was starting to compare them to this and they didn't feel as powerful as they did initially.
Okay. I can see this list without Yumi at 6 and Broadside at this point.
Fuck.
At this point, I think we got to get into the 20.
Get there. I knew we were going to get there, and it sucks so hard, but you're right. It has to be these cuts right now.
It's got to be specifically these two.
Why? Can you explain a little bit? I'm going to do it.
It has to be these two because I can't pick two others off of the remaining list. I could only see myself picking one, and not because I know who that one is. I'm just saying I can't pick two off this remaining list.
Then I know who my other one is.
No. No.
I don't feel good about it, bro. I don't feel good about it. Let's just go ahead and do it. Take Me Back to Eat It by Sleep Token is not making the top 20 this year.
We were all thinking it.
Listen, if you want to pitch me a cut right now to save your album, I will listen. But you've got to pitch. Like, you have to go to bat to kill something else.
Why do you have the cursor where it is?
That's not the one I was thinking of.
Okay.
All right. Ignore that.
All right. Well,
you have to sell me on cutting something else. You have to.
What genre were you looking to cut?
I'm looking at Holding Absence. Color the genre whatever you want.
Cut it.
You are certain of that.
You are the one performing this action is what I would like on record. And that I was influenced. My decision was influenced.
With a fucking photo of the band up in the corner looking down at me as I do it.
Pull up the track listing. I just want to give her another look. Because there's a collection of songs on there that we're probably not giving enough credit. What an insane cut. Crooked Melody.
I didn't say I felt good about it, bro. I did not say I felt good about it.
Death, the Honeymoon. All right, I love you, Holding Absence. With all due respect, you're getting cut. Whew, and it's real.
Holy shit.
This is our 20.
That was like not fun. This is like the least fun this has ever been.
It's actually, this year should not have been this difficult.
It really shouldn't have. All right. In no particular order, here's what we have for the top 20 albums of the year so far. I mean, we have the 20.
It is a particular order, just not the one we would probably ultimately land on.
Exactly. So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy, 10,000 Gex by 100 Gex, The Main by The Main, Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token, One More Time by Blink-182, Sanguivore by Creeper, Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes, Void Eternal by Nothing Nowhere, A Gradual Decline in Morale by Kim Dracula, The Surface by Beartooth, Heavener by Inanimate, The Best Part About Being Human by Bearings, Super Bloom by Silent Planet, Ready to Eat by Beauty School Dropout, Abeyance by Alt, Zig by Poppy, Daydreamer by Dead Lakes, Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan, Fatalism by Polaris, The Death We Seek by Currents.
So
what the fuck do you want to do with this list right now? What the fuck?
It's interesting. We could approach it in a couple different ways.
How the fuck?
There are very clearly a number of albums on this list that we wasted no time on discussing.
Yeah.
they were just locks, right? So my question to you is, are they locks enough to just be like some of the tops? You know, like, are they at the top at all? Are they more towards the bottom? But we just knew they had to be in the 20.
All right.
Let's put a divide. Let's put a couple of spaces between 10 and 11. And let's get real.
All right.
A couple of names on here real quick
Sure.
that I would have never expected in a million years to reach the top 20 albums for SOTS.
Say it.
Blink-182 and Fall Out Boy
Go, baby.
in 2023
We are so back.
officially have made our top 20 albums of the year.
We're so back.
Where they'll ultimately land, I don't know yet. But they're on here. And honestly, Beartooth's right there with them. Even 100 Gex. This is this ain't your typical SOTS list.
It's wacky.
Currents, bearings,
bands I'd never heard of up until
Beauty School Dropout.
Alt. All right, let's do this. Who down here should be in the top 10? Like who do you think is too low? Who do you feel like would be in your 10?
Invent Animate.
I'm with you.
Their record
100%.
Heavener is probably a top 10 album of this year. We've moved Heavener to 6 because we like the number 6. What did you screw up here?
I don't know. I'm just making messes now. Anything else down here that you feel like?
I mean, yes.
Talk it out with me.
I just don't know how willing you're crazy to how crazy you are willing to get. Rather,
I feel like if we
about
move
alt.
one up, we got to swap one down, right?
Okay, so I'll hit you with this.
Yeah.
I don't think So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy is necessarily
The number one album of the year.
a number one album this year. I'm at this point happy it's in the 20. I don't know if that means it has to be 20 or 6 or 5 or whatever.
Let's put it right outside the 10. And then let's just go ahead for fun at
And
the
fix
moment
things.
and make 100 Gex the album.
They
of
won't
the
be
year.
there long. Let's keep on dancing around the elephant in the room here.
Okay, so we've moved Fall Out Boy just outside the 10. So right now in the 10, Gex, Main, Sleep Token, Blink, Invent, Creeper, Trophy Eyes, Nothing Nowhere, Kim Dracula, Beartooth.
Beartooth is a wonderful record. I do not necessarily believe that it is a top 10 record album of this year.
Interesting.
Figured let's make a little bit of space, you know? But that then begs the question of the 11 through 20, what would bump up?
Interesting.
Bunch of different options here.
Yeah, there's such a fucking range.
Can I throw a crazy one at you just to see how we ultimately land?
Hit me.
Fatalism by Polaris? Like, what if we just put it up there?
I would
Just
not.
to see.
I would not. All right. I'll play games with you for a little bit. But I do not think
Gee, thanks.
ultimately I would put Polaris over some of these other albums.
Is Currents the 20th best record of the year? Or is that maybe staring us in the face anywhere here.
I don't feel strongly enough to move it right now. That's not a move I want to make right now. All right, let me get a good look at this. Here's what I'm thinking right now.
All right. I'm not sure if I'm 100% there.
I moved Bearings up to round out the top 10.
Can I tell you something kind of crazy?
Go ahead.
Is number 2 a lock right where it is?
No, it's not.
This is, for me, by and far the Main's best record.
Talk about the Main a little bit.
It gives meaning, this one, to calling a record, like self-titling a record. It's so inherently the Main. It is everything you absolutely love about that band, and it's good all the way down. They don't make room for any bad, in my opinion. It is one of the records I kept coming back to as I was kind of like formulating where I personally wanted albums to land heading into this. And I kept looking at like the 2 to 3 spot for it, thinking like, man, I just don't know if I had as good a time with any of the other records here in contention outside of like 1, maybe 2, than the Main. I think that this record is so good. It's them literally at their fucking best. It's a marked improvement over the last record, which had some excellent singles, but otherwise was a really forgettable experience. Not a single forgettable track on this new record. I absolutely adore it. John is as charismatic a frontman as they come. I'm talking literally wrapped around this guy's finger with every word that they sing on this record. Tracks on here like Spiraling really push it over the edge for me. Leaving 5. I could walk away from this album, and I have, with a new favorite song every time I listen to it. And to me, like, that is 100% what I look for in a top 20 album of the year, probably a top 10 album of the year. I just wanted to kind of just throw that out there a little bit. The Main by the Main is fucking phenomenal.
You know, the Main are interesting because I feel like they're the antithesis to bands like Blink-182 and Fall Out Boy, where those bands always feel like they're trying to recapture the magic of their earlier career, whereas the Main is one of these bands who has actually aged very gracefully, and like the more mature they get, the better band they've actually become. And no aspect of listening to the Main ever makes me pine for them to sound like they used to. They always sound exactly like they should on each album in this point in their career. It's a very fascinating thing to like. I've just never seen a band like that I followed in the scene just like so elegantly move forward without any like seismic shift like throughout their career.
They're also one of those bands that like when they make that step forward, when they mature in that way that they mature with that new album cycle, I don't question it. I'm just there for the ride. And you've got to appreciate that to some degree, because there's plenty of bands, like I'm looking at bands on here where like they drop their next album and like I question them a little bit. I don't question the Main. I trust in the Main to make the right decision. It doesn't always result in a good album. However, in this case, it fucking did.
It doesn't always result in an impeccable album.
Yes.
For the most part, it generally tends to be a good album for the most part.
Also, though, like, you say that, and I remember being fairly sour overall on that last record, to the point where like this one gets announced and we're sort of like right around the corner from it releasing, and I'm still like just unbothered. Like I don't really care that it's coming out. I don't have any high hopes for it, high expectations. And then it does, and like it's perfect to me.
This for me feels a little bit like a better version of that last album.
It's 100% a better version. Were you super high on that record? I don't remember you being.
No, but I remember what I'm saying is I remember enjoying it. I don't remember it being a bad album. I was super high on, I believe it was called You Are Okay.
Right. That was like a top 10.
Right. So like, but like by that point of comparison, but it's like the main has a very strong level of consistency.
I think the main for me at least is a top 5 record this year.
It's not 2 for me personally. I can see arguments for it remaining in the top 10. I think there are other albums I would take over it in the 5 as well, though.
I don't think so.
I'm trying to figure out the types of moves I want to make. I mean, does it help if we make the obvious one and then work around it?
Just let's not even address it. We're just moving it, and we're all moving on with our lives.
Well,
and we'll come back to it.
Is it worth addressing, though, just in a sense of like, it feels like something we'll never talk about if we don't stop and talk about why we think Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token needs to be number 1, at least lightly here as we're doing these shifts.
It's respectfully not even just number 1. It's number 1 with a large gap to number 2.
I agree.
Man, last year, for as good as it was, and for as much as I love that Bad Omens album, there were other bands right on their ass. Sleep Token with the comfortable lead, practically lapping other bands in this top 20 respectfully.
You know how I felt about that fucking Thornhill album.
I know. You know how I felt about the fucking Prada album.
Mm-hmm. But this year, you're right. As much as I would like to you know, be difficult and create any level of drama or chaos around this, it really would be disingenuous for me to pretend like this album wasn't absolutely fucking life-changing for me.
Yeah, it's an astronomical payoff. Watching this band grow as artists like they have over the years. And it hasn't all been ups and downs. It hasn't only been highs. I was slightly down on that previous record to the point where I think it definitely absolutely did not make our top 20 that year, now that I think back on it.
I don't think it did. We were very high.
We
on
weren't
the
even
singles,
considering
but
it.
not the album.
I forget about that. We didn't even consider that for top 20.
Felt much stronger about Sundowning though, for what it was worth.
Sundowning, an excellent debut record. Honestly, experiencing that record for the first time is how I relate to the people who discovered Sleep Token this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you're feeling all of what I felt the first time I heard Sundowning, which was that I'd heard potentially one of the greatest acts that I'll ever get to experience in my lifetime.
In a way, I disagree. I think Sleep Token is a band where somehow you got to have that same experience twice. Just because
I don't disagree. I know what you mean.
Just because, this album is simply so transcendent that it almost can't even be compared to their other albums. It is the same band, but somehow leaps and bounds from where we left off with them.
I tried to fight it a little bit throughout the year. I can distinctly remember saying a couple times, like, it's good. Is it as good as Sundowning? No, of course not. Come on. And then the more time spent with it throughout the course of the year, it's like, man, it is. It's the best album of this year. It's one of the best albums I've heard in my life. And it'd be weird not to put it in the number 1 slot. It's
one of the biggest events we've ever had in the scene is the release of this album, and then the ascension of Sleep Token ever since.
Yeah, there is very much a reason for that ascension, and it's because there's not really a whole lot of artists like Sleep Token we compare them to a lot of artists, but they are uniquely their own thing. Vessel has some of the best lyricism, imagery, visuals in that songwriting you could ask for. Don't get me started on the vocals, of course. And then the rest of the band are like, they just bring it, you know? Drumming is intense. The guitar work's a lot of fun. This band's got just melody after melody. Lots of variety in the music. You got your crazy moments like on the Summoning. Parts where they're sort of like spitting on Take Me Back to Eden / Ascensionism. It's also, man, this is one of those records where I can tell you what each and every single one of those songs sound like just by looking at the title. I can't do that with every single record we've discussed so far this evening, because records like this one only come around like once in a blue moon, you know? It's a perfect record. Every song on here is necessary. It's perfect. It sounds incredible. There's nothing else like it in this top 20. Nothing left in this top 20 holds a candle to it. And I mean that with all due respect to every band on here. We're talking about excellent albums that we're trying to compare this to.
Mm-hmm.
And they still don't hold a candle. It's just a revolutionary album.
And you think the next step down from that is the main, huh?
When you say it like that, I don't like how you phrased it, first of all. What do you think the next step down from that is? Because I challenge you that it is not 100 gex.
Okay. No, I agree with you there.
Okay. All right. Just making sure we're not getting too crazy today.
I think I know Blink 182 would not be in the cards for you either.
The issue I've got with Blink is it's just a touch long.
A touch long?
It's a
You want to know what long is? The fucking 14 years of listening to this band until this album came out.
Just a touch
That
long.
was a touch long. All right.
Is it 18 perfect songs is my question.
No, it's not 18 tracks long, you fucking maniac.
Is it not?
Is it?
Is it actually not longer than that?
There's no fucking way this is 19 tracks long, bro.
I'm pulling it
You're
up.
tripping.
It's probably somehow a 22 track.
You're tripping. Stop.
This is literally a 19 song album at 50 minutes.
It's a 19 song album that feels like 10 tracks because it's so fucking tight. Fuck yourself.
I had a great time with this record.
This record's a fucking
no denying
blast. It's a fucking blast. All right. How do you feel about Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan? This isn't my pitch for number 2. I want your feelings on this record. I know we talked about it a little bit. The problem with pulling up this band's Spotify is like trying to remember a song based on the title.
Yeah, you're right. Not wrong.
Is such a waste of fucking time. So yeah, what did fucking Gans Media Retro fucking like what, dog? You even like, don't get me wrong, I do appreciate the fucking absolute seeming irreverence they approach naming fucking songs with. But then the second we got to come in here and be like,
you're right, this ain't helping even a bit.
Smacked my head. Sound like
John the Rock Cena. All right, pull this down.
Golf is
Let's go back. I don't think I feel strongly enough about this record on re-listens that I really care exactly where it places. It's probably in the back half.
This album plays so heavily on my experience the first time listening to it. It was so fucking powerful for me. And I still think there's so much in there to adore, and that this band just knows how to write an incredibly compelling, so I don't even know if it's a story or like a character study, but their approach to like writing music feels like, you know, very different than a lot of these other bands, and I really appreciate what they achieve on this record. But I also don't know that, like, I'm looking at this 20 and I'm looking at this 19, and I don't feel strongly enough to move them. How do you feel about Dead Lakes? Are they too low for you?
I could talk you into number 2 for Dead Lakes.
All right, well, now you're being fucking... So now it's the main and it's Dead Lakes at 2.
It's a tie. It's a sweet little tie. Biggest one I'm looking at down here that feels too low is Super Bloom by Silent Planet.
We haven't talked about it at all. Why?
It's like one of those things where it's like just assumed that this, of course, makes the 20. And again, the reason why we haven't talked about it is because just like there hasn't been a need to until now. But this is heads and tails over, or heads and shoulders. Heads and tails.
Heads, tails, and shoulders.
Heads, tails, and shoulders over Iridescent. I think that this is a marked return to form for this band. I think about Super Bloom in the same way that I think about maybe those first couple of Silent Planet albums. I think that it's a great record. It is among the best in their catalog. I love the concept of this record stemming from the band's Dance with Death, essentially, when they flipped their van traveling around this time last year. They went into the studio with that in mind, and from that was born a really beautiful record.
Right, they built the whole record around it. Like they built the whole record around that concept, and I think they did a really great job of conceptually tying the entirety of this record in what is sadly but unfortunately something that like we've experienced with so many bands, and it's kind of fascinating to see Silent Planet sort of take that experience and then sort of like form a whole record around it. It's just like I don't know.
Really
like
think on
like
it.
it feels like a thing that's like, oh, this sucks. It just fucking happens to bands all the time. It fucking sucks. But like it happens to Silent Planet, and they come out of it with like a crowning like creative achievement. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's also like not only that, but like this band was up against the fucking wall with also like having a member step down and then sort of having to like twist the band into something, you know, not completely different, but like work it into something new to like, you know, better suit the pieces that still remained. And I think they did such a fucking... The problem is they didn't just do a good job of it. They came out the other side even better than they were, right? Which is fucking nuts.
Yeah. This album does contain the best song, as we settled on, of the year.
Contains song of the year. That's true. Contains song of the year.
Antimatter. And then there's some other fucking amazing songs on here too. The Overgrowth gives you know, it harkens back to this band's maybe like original sound that everyone kind of discovered them off of.
Super Bloom feels completely different than anything they've ever done before. The title track.
Signal is fucking ferocious. I love the extraterrestrial feel that song specifically has, and that is sort of laced around the rest of this record too. They sort of do like two things on this record, which is make this feel like alien, and also conceptually they wrap in the whole accident portion of things as well. And it makes her just a really breathtaking ride from beginning to end. It's a really insane record. And it feels low to me, at least for 14. What do you think your number 2 is?
This feels like a setup.
I'm just inquiring.
It just feels like you just want to shoot me down. I don't trust you. All right.
Is it Blink?
It's not Blink. it's not Blink, but it's not Blink. I think it's probably Void Eternal by Nothing Nowhere.
Really?
I just like, I think that if we're talking about like one of the most like undeniable talents that's come up with this scene in the last few years, Nothing Nowhere is insane. And the flexibility within what they're capable of, you think to their last album, which was in my top 10.
Yeah. Yep.
I can't remember if it was like a joint top 10 at the time. When did it come out?
Are we talking Reaper?
No, right? We're talking about the album after.
What was it?
Hold on. Reaper would be before that.
Is that the first
So
record? Ruiner?
We're talking about Trauma Factory.
Oh shit, Trauma Factory.
So Trauma Factory to me is like this just absolute peak of this like fucking emo rap fucking bullshit that I'm absolutely in love with, right? And
to pivot then into
no, but like you're missing a step. Because even before we get to
the Travis
fucking,
Barker EP.
No, but even before we fucking like,
Or that came out after it, I think.
we do and it's like we take like, God fucking damn it, we take a moment to just God damn it with all these fucking one takes and shit. God damn, we drop what ends up being one of his bigger songs in Pieces of You.
This is the prom song,
right?
oh.
And we just like slightly
good.
diverge into pop punk just for a split, just for like a hair, just to prove we can also dominate that genre.
It's a 3-point turn.
Right. Only to swing out into what ends up being like this new metal meets like emo rap, like brainchild that he's come up with. And to also be insane at that, like, it's not just that Nothing Nowhere put out another good album. It's another good album that's like not even anything like the other good album before that. Like, it's almost just stepping into not a completely different field, because he brings a lot of the things that he does really well into a different style of music. And it's in that sort of like connection between the two that we find something special. But it's in finding that something special that makes Nothing Nowhere such a fucking like brilliant mind to me. Like, just a brilliant fucking musician in our scene. Like, just so few artists like him that can just bounce around to all these different styles of music and just dominate them as far as I'm concerned. And then
More about Void Eternal, though.
And then bringing in all these features into Void Eternal, like, it's not just that the album feels lightly like a little bit of a love letter to like the entirety of like the sort of like movement of like post-hardcore and the like growth of like new metal throughout the scene, but it's like we bring in all of these pieces like Senses Fail and Silverstein and Underoath to help elevate it, but none of them ever overshadow Nothing Nowhere. Like, all of them feel like they are there just as like a supplementary piece to like assist. And then you like newer voices like Will Ramos and like See You Space Cowboy, Static Dress.
Pete
It's
Wentz.
like it's not just that this is a good Nothing Nowhere album. This for me feels like one of those albums that you could quintessentially say is a product of the scene. And if anyone was ever interested in getting into it, you could hand them this and be like, here's a fucking breath of what the scene is like. Here is alternative music. This is what it is. And And there's still something about it that feels so slept on to me that, like, it's not going to get its due outside of us. And 5 or 6 years from now, somebody's going to pick up this record and be like, holy shit.
Fuck.
This is like, what was this? Was this like 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge like 6 years ago? Was that like, were people fucking losing their mind for this shit? And they should be. They fucking should be.
Okay.
I think it's an insanely strong record.
For the record, I'm right there with you. Okay. I think that this record absolutely rocks. Amazing that Nothing Nowhere managed to pull it off.
Pete Wentz is on that album.
Pete Wentz is on that album. And I think he does some poetry on that bitch too. Guy can't help himself. All right, so let's move it into the top 5 and let's just put it under Sleep Token. And if we start feeling weird about things, we can reassess. Let's make sure the maid don't end up too far from number 2. Can I just get into it?
Sure.
A Gradual Decline in Morale by Kim Dracula is the fucking craziest album of this year. That's not Take Me Back to Eden. Kim Dracula, an artist we only discovered literally when recording like our top songs of last year, this time last year.
Right, because wasn't that like, was it Make Me Famous or whatever?
It was the other one, I think. It was the other one, whatever it was. Drown. And the song's got both of those tracks on there, and suddenly found an artist that we just really enjoyed. Cut to this time this year, I found one of my favorite records by far. It's got everything. Literally, it's like 18 tracks long. The opening song is entirely different from track 9. Track 9 is different from track 3 and 6 and 4. It's weird. It's an uncomfortable record. But it's amazing. It's such an amazing experience. Like, man, I'm happy giving an album that made me uncomfortable a top slot during a year, because it made me feel something that, while enjoying it still, not a lot of other albums like evoke out of me like that specific feeling or emotion. And I mean, this record it's just everything to me. It's such a weird record. It's a fascinating ride. And a lot of it stems just from Kim Dracula specifically, and the personification of that artist or that character that exists within this record is nothing short of brilliant. It's like you're listening to a Sonic version of like a Jim Carrey character from the 90s at times.
It does relish in its absurdity, yes.
And you know, at times it's certainly a lot, and it's a little overwhelming, and it's a little too silly, but it pulls it all off so well. That's not to say it's all perfect.
It has such vision though. Like, it's just like, it's willing to delve into absurdity to find the thing within that works. And more often than not, Kim Dracula manages to find it.
At some point, this artist is talking in the third person several times throughout this record. It's just nuts. It's extremely catchy. Songs like Kitty Kitty. 70 Thorns has the Jonathan Davis from Korn feature on there as well. There's just so much fucking happening, and it's so cool and interesting. But again, it's not all good. And I think that the biggest thing I would say that this album has going against it is it just ends on a real, like, just a whimper a bit with the Iris cover.
20
Iris
tracks
was written by some band. I don't even know who the fuck who.
20 our last night. 20 it's 20 tracks is a lot, right? To maintain that level of interest. And granted, there's like fucking 4 interludes throughout here because it's also sort of like building this bizarre narrative about like a performer who then also I think like kills himself towards the end of it. So there's a lot going on here. You're right. It doesn't all work, but what's interesting about an artist like Kim Dracula is that I feel like in their willingness to fail, they're able to find things that are more interesting than any of the safe, successful choices a lot of other bands make. So I love an artist like Kim Dracula who's just like completely untethered by and who just uses like a broad like umbrella of metal as like a playground to try a million different ideas, right?
Right. And whether those ideas are like leaning into a chorus that you would expect to find on like a Lady Gaga album in 2010 towards something like in the first half of this record where it's practically deathcore for like at least 20 seconds. Like so much more works on this record than it has any conceivable right to. And like you said, it's in the willingness to take that risk that we find some absolute fucking gems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know, it's hard for me to find an album that I adore as much as I adore this one this year.
That being said, I think it's worth noting that I feel incredibly similarly about Zig by Poppy, which is just like one of these albums where it Poppy is such a difficult artist to like on this album define in any like sense, because there's like such an like this weird like overall range from one song to another where we go from what feels like these really dark sadistic styled songs to like these club jams and somehow they all manage to like properly flow from start to finish over the course of this album in a way that doesn't make this feel like whiplash. So by the time we get to Motorbike, it feels like a record that deserves to be on here with like Church Outfit, but both songs have such dramatically different energies from one another.
The Attic, Linger as well.
Like for me, it's like everything just comes secondary to Poppy the individual, and like whatever they choose to do is just like interesting over the course of this album. And I feel like it's so rewarding to have an artist like Poppy put an album like this out, because it reminds me so much of why I fell in love with them to begin with, just because they don't spend any time trying to adhere to any notion of what you think they should sound like or what other artists in the general scope of them sound like. They're just Poppy. Like there's no other artist that I feel like again, I bring them up because I feel like Kim Dracula approaches their album very similarly, but like I don't even think Poppy and Kim Dracula really share many similarities between the two of them, right? Other than their willingness to be dramatically different to find something interesting to say or play or whatever.
So you're thinking top 10?
I don't know if I'm thinking top 10. It just felt like a good time to sort of like take a moment to explain why I feel so strongly about this record being in the 20, but not necessarily the 10. 10's tough right now to kick anybody out of. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes is such a fucking incredible journey. and it's again one of the most emotionally devastating albums I've ever listened to. And it's even outside of ones that directly speak to like the subject matter. Like, it's just the overall. It's the title of this album is like the brushstroke that it paints the entire experience with, and you feel like what they're going for. You feel what they're trying to communicate with, like the disparity between what they're presenting here, right? Which is obvious, but it's like made even more so over the course of this record. I would actually move Suicide and Sunshine up for me personally.
Not over what's there.
What's your feelings on Creeper?
That's my hard line there. Creeper benefits from that re-listen hard. It's just impressive in its own right for this band to go away, come back a couple of years later, and sound like a different band entirely. And not in the same way that like a band that's heavy suddenly stops being heavy. In a way that's like, this band came back from a time machine, having studied like game from the 1970s.
Yes, yeah.
And they came back like equipped with like that
game
knowledge
footage from the 1970s.
Right. And like they just transformed themselves, and you see it in their the aesthetic, their newfound aesthetic. That was a shelved, that's a cutting room floor Every Time I Die album title.
Every Time I Die album is now a cutting room floor Every Time I Die, for what it's worth. But
I don't know, this album just works so well for me. The whole concept behind it,
it's the way this band retains their core while also completely transforming who they are. It's really fascinating to watch them do it. But it's also there's a romance to everything Creeper does that I really enjoy. And I think the way that they like wield their two vocalists, and the way those vocalists both like manage to transform themselves with each record to appropriately suit whatever style of music they're trying to capture, or whatever era of music that they're trying to capture. And it is crazy to go and look at Creeper and the way that they're able to just like chameleon like be the best version of a band from a certain time period. It's just insane. It's a fucking like flip of a switch. Here's how I'm feeling a little bit. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's the moves I'm willing to make. I want to shift around some of the albums that I really adored to move up some of the albums that I think should be a little higher.
What's your play here? What are you trying to do?
That I think Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes should be higher. And I'm willing to move down a couple of albums below them to get it up there. Does that make sense? So I think the Trophy Eyes album to me is stronger than 100 Gex and Blink-182. So I feel comfortable moving them lower in this 10. I think we have Kim Dracula a little high right now based on our conversation.
It's not as flawless as a lot of its competition. I actually think Sam has moved it to 11.
Let's just feel it out. Like, based on our conversation, is there albums that we think maybe should actually be higher, right?
I don't know if I'm there with you on Nothing Nowhere for 2.
That's fine. That doesn't have to be a hard lock. We can still move stuff around. I don't know if I'm with you on the main for 2, though. So where do we sit on Heavener by Invent Animate?
Heaven by Invent Animate is just this band's crown jewel so far. It's their magnum opus.
Somehow that undersells it.
It does. But to of course get a new vocalist, drop Greyview, which is an okay album, has its moments, whatever. Follow it up a little later on with a 3-track EP that honestly at the time of its release may have had this band's 3 best songs on it. Do you disagree with that?
No, I agree with that.
All right. You were like weirdly silent there.
I think like I was just thinking. I'm sorry. I think that the fucking chart for Invent Animate has been an ever growing like green light. Like I don't think this band has ever dipped or remained stagnant. It's always been going upwards in terms of the level of like product that they're putting out there.
So we've reached our latest peak, which turns out is Heavener by Invent Animate. I don't know if this band pulled a Fall Out Boy or Water Parks and officially added the title track that came out 7 months after the album dropped.
I don't believe they did. I don't think they, after the fact, like cut it into the album. I think it's separate. I also think it's a little trivial, so we shouldn't get hung up on it one way or the other. I just think this album is like one of the richest listening experience. There's just so much texture to what Invent Animate creates, and it's so thick with atmosphere, and all of it is anchored by just like, honestly, maybe the most talented fucking guitarists I've ever heard in my whole life. Like, and I say that knowing full well that like they are in a sea of what feels like never-ending, insanely talented guitarists. But with that being said, I just like, this band compels me almost with just listening to them riff alone is like a fucking a like spiritual experience. Like it's that. So then everything that they layer on top of it is just like gravy. It's like you've already taken perfect, and now you're just giving me more and more and more and more on top of that.
I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Invent Animate are one of those few bands where I think that, like, I don't personally love instrumental music. When Invent Animate drop an instrumental album, I seek it out, and it's off of the strength of those guitarists, their drummer. They're just a fucking talented band top to bottom.
Yeah.
I love all of it. I want to consume all of it.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read from 1 down to 20, just where we sit right now.
No, I don't like where it's at.
I just want people to know, like if you're just listening, kind of like where everything sits currently. It's not like official or anything. This is just to give people an idea of where we're at. Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token. Heavener by Invent Animate. Void Eternal by Nothing Nowhere. The Main by The Main. Sanguivore by Creeper. Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes. 10,000 Gex by 100 Gex. One More Time by Blink-182. Super Bloom by Silent Planet. The Best Part About Being Human by Bearings. A Gradual Decline in Morale by Kim Dracula. Fatalism by Polaris. The Surface by Beartooth. So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy. Ready to Eat by Beauty School Dropout. Abeyance by Alt. Zig by Poppy. Daydreamer by Dead Lakes. Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan. The Death We Seek by Currents. I feel like there are some albums here who deserve a pitch for why they should move up that haven't received it yet. But what I'm really curious about is why you felt so strongly that Beartooth needed to be dropped down.
I don't know about feel strongly it had to be dropped.
It was just like something you called out, like without even being pushed on it. You were like, all right, well, we got to get Beartooth the fuck down. I'm like, okay.
So, hey, hard choices need to be made. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, but you were making hard choices in a room where easy choices were still available. So like,
it's just the way I like to live my life, bro.
Can you speak to it at least a little bit?
I can speak to it a little bit. I actually think this record maybe goes down further.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Are you secretly mega in love with this album? Is it a number? Are we putting it at 2?
All right, hold on. Let me take a glance at this track listing again.
Did forget that this had a Riptide.
All right, well, let's start here. You go essentially 6 songs of perfection.
Magic.
And then maybe you could argue that these aren't quite as strong before I get to I Was Alive.
I think I Was Alive is actually the weakest of the bunch you just mentioned.
Well, that's just a stupid take.
With maybe...
That's just and you're tired right
with
now.
Maybe
so
like
I get why you're making stupid
My
takes.
New Reality being way better?
Where's the one where he says... blood stains on my stainless. Is it that one?
Yeah.
That one's also very good.
What's Killing You is fun. The song on here that has no right to be as good as it is the one that features the country singer that on first listen I thought it was the worst song I'd heard all year long.
Fucking same.
I think we were driving home from the Bad Omens concert, stuck in traffic, and that came on, and I almost just went outside and
I was ready to quit the scene.
I almost laid in front of an 18-wheeler.
Like, I'm so over this stupid bullshit.
And now that song comes on, and I'm like, is this quietly the best song of the year, maybe?
I feel like you and I experienced a microcosm of what the rest of this scene will experience at some point. Is they're going to come around and they're going to stop bitching about Beartooth being fun again, because they're not really boring anymore. And they're going to realize that this is actually a blast of a fucking album to listen to.
So fun, dude. Sunshine is such a novel little song. Some acoustic guitar, and they really turn it around, and it turns into a heavy song, and blah blah blah. It's a fun record. I you know what? I could talk myself into this being the second best of the year. You're right, Sam.
I'm not going.
It's a great observation.
I just needed to understand why you felt so strongly that it needed to drop the fuck out of top 10.
What does have to drop? What are we looking at that has to drop?
I don't know that it's not that I feel like things need to drop. I'm just looking at 2 albums and wondering if they need to move up. And I'm curious what, like, we might argue for them, like, in their defense. I think Beauty School Dropout is the most exciting new band in this scene. Wait, hold on. Who else is on this list?
I was going to say.
Hold on. Does that stick?
It might on this list.
I think out of the gate, just in terms of like quality, it is incredible to me how good this album is.
It's really short and sweet too.
But not in a way that feels like underdeveloped, because it's still weirdly thought out. It's like softly conceptual in nature, right? It has something to say. And it says that over the course of, like, additionally, 7 of, like, the hottest fucking pop punk songs you've heard all year. It's like, this for me was the only challenger for Bearings, who I think put out a flawless pop punk record that is maybe slightly more traditional. But they're almost like the 2 ends of the spectrum for me. Like, Bearings feels like what pop punk has been for, like, so long, up until, like, Machine Gun Kelly strapped on the pink gussie,
strapped it on,
and then we started getting bands like Ready to Eat and artists like Jaden, who features on this, and they're that new wave, and both of them together just feel unstoppable to me. Like, this is fucking premier pop punk right now, right?
Yeah. I feel like Bearings might be too high. Is Bearings a top 10 record of the year?
The fucking thing about it is that it kind of is. That's the fucking thing about it.
Because I don't know if I take that over Alt or Beauty School Dropout. Beartooth. Just asking questions. I do think that I see a swap that you're probably not going to love me for.
Talk to me about it.
I think I probably swap 100 with Trophy.
If that's how you feel, then I think that is probably truer to our combined list of what we're trying to do here.
How do you feel about the main Creeper 100? Is that right? Is Creeper above the main?
I don't see any issues here in like the middle point of this 10 right here. I think the question for me right now is if we feel one of these artists should be higher, and then if we want to settle on what we think like the top 5-ish is.
I don't know.
All right.
Let's work our way from the back, maybe.
Okay.
Are
we comfortable leaving Currents, The Death We Seek, at 20? I think so. I think that is a really consistent, strong metalcore release. But I don't think I would, at this point, argue for it personally over something like Invenanimate, Beartooth, or Silent Planet. I might still feel like I would take it over Polaris, but you feel much stronger about that album than I seemingly
do, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about the record where the placement between the two is 8 spots.
All right, so we'll wait to get there, but we think Currents is probably fine where it is.
I think
you don't think there's an
so.
album that should actually be at 20? Currents is almost like falling into this position in a weird way, but I don't know that I think something else should be moved down to where it is. So
yeah,
it might just stay there. Why would I watch by Hot Mulligan at 19?
I don't think it's in the right spot. I'm not saying it has to jump too high.
I'll move it to 17. Okay. Wait, hold on.
But I take Poppy over it.
All right. Well, we're going to move it up a little bit then. If you tell me you're going to take Dead Lakes over it, then I don't know what we just did.
I do.
Well, then what the fuck? You're the one who just told me it needs to move up.
I think what I'm getting at is Fall Out Boy at 14 right? Is that actually 19?
All right. So you're saying Fall Out Boy, it's an honor to be nominated.
No. What do you think? What do you think though?
I think that is for me more correct for Fall Out Boy. Listen, okay. I think this album is a blast, but it's not fucking From Under the Cork Tree. Like let's not be insane here. For me, this is like, all right, for me personally, we're back in like that save rock and roll era of at least like consistency. So we'll put Fall Out Boy at 19. Dead Lakes at 18. I don't mind that. I think that makes sense to me. Dead Lakes are a very promising up and coming
debut
band.
record, Marcos.
Yes. Poppy at 17.
Now this does start to feel too low. And I think this is where I think there's an argument to put it maybe near Kim Dracula. So
at this point we're just almost like tying them together now that we've sort of spoken it out loud.
Now that you've said it out loud.
Is we're rewarding the vision. Even though I think, if I'm being honest, I think Poppy is a significantly more consistent album than Kim Dracula.
I think I take Poppy over Bearings.
All right, we're not going to go that far yet. Hold on. Let's scroll back down. All right, so that leaves Daydreamer by Dead Lakes at 18. Why would I watch by Hot Mulligan at 17?
Yes.
This is one that we just have. Let's see. I feel like we've just been avoiding a conversation about it.
I could tell you this is number 10 right now, at least. I think I went into this episode ready to give this 2 or 3.
And you want to go all the way up to 10 with, pronounce that for me, please.
Poppy?
No, this.
Oh, Abeyance.
Is this the one you want to move up to 10, or are you talking about Poppy?
Now I don't know.
I think this is also a very good record. I don't know if I mean, low key. All right.
Yeah.
This just needs to, I think for me, come down here. I thoroughly enjoy my experience with that record. I think Polaris are kind of like, that's like a really good spot for them for me personally, because I feel like they kind of do like they do like a lot of the things that I think everyone else does like explicitly good. Like the one thing this band does insanely good, this band does one thing insanely good, this band does one thing insanely good. Polaris does everything great. You know what I mean? Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 16 feels good. I think the bottom 5 are locks at this point.
All right, so that's Fatalism by Polaris at 16. Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan at 17. Daydreamer by Dead Lakes at 18. So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy at 19. And The Death We Seek by Currents at 20. Comfortable with that as well. What happens here? Bearing seems to be a sticking point with you. You didn't have the same experience I had with that album.
Are you telling me right now Bearings is the 10th best record of the year? If you are, I will drop it. I'm just asking.
Here's where I'm at mentally. I think this
goes up. Yeah. But it's insane because I think Ready to Eat is actually a perfect album.
I don't disagree with that. I don't fucking disagree with that. But I think the best part about Being Human by Bearings is a perfect record. These styles of albums, if every song has like a big hook and is fun to sing along with, like if you hit that on every single song, then it really is flawless for what they went for. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think both of these bands fucking nailed it. The Surface by Beartooth at 15 feel right.
Feels good.
All right, we'll move on from it. A Gradual Decline of Morale by Kim Dracula at 14.
There's like 20 minutes of this record that are the greatest music that's ever been recorded in the history of man.
Right.
And then there's also 20 more minutes that aren't.
There's a perfect version of this album that like we were so close that is so like close. Number 2. I think this is where it stays this year.
Yeah. Part of me wanted to get crazy and really just go hard for that album.
I think that's why having the conversation was important. Abeyance by Alt at 13.
I like that you just refuse to say it.
What is it?
Abeyance?
Abeyance by
is Alt. How I understand it to be said.
Abeyance by Alt, 13.
Yes. I think that's probably as far as we can go with their debut.
Speaking of debuts, Marcus, ready to keep up musical dropout at number 12.
Maybe as far as we can go with their debut. I think my sticking point is like I like those last 2 albums so much.
What last 2 albums?
The last 2 we've discussed here with Beauty School Dropout and all. And I guess I probably like them more than Zig, but I'm not sure.
So you're just saying like personal preference, the albums that you're going to go back and revisit, you're thinking it's going to be these 2 before it's these 2.
Maybe.
Don't fucking maybe me at this point, bro. Which is it?
I mean, I say maybe, but I've spent a ton of time with a lot of these Poppy songs so far. Where is Super Bloom at 9 right?
Is Super Bloom at 9 right? I don't know if it is.
What is right?
We're about to get real creative because I think my mouse died.
Word?
I think we might
Is this it? Is this the list?
I think my Mac might have just made the call for us.
No way. Huh.
It would be hilarious to just call it and be like, you know what?
It would be very SOTS to just call
The
this the list.
The Mac said this is the list.
Are we feeling crazy right now?
You seem to have an issue with Silent Planet, though. You think that's...
I don't know if it's too high, too low, just right.
I think Silent Planet is very good, to its credit. I know this is an insane thing to say, but if this is where the Mac died and said we should leave the list.
You think it's the universe telling us this is the
I'm not
list?
saying it's the universe. I'm just saying, like, is there another move to be made here?
We feel rock solid on the top 5.
I mean, rock solid. I don't know about fucking rock solid, bro. What would you change? What doesn't feel right?
It's not what I was getting at. I'm just asking.
No, but like, what are you thinking?
Part of me is like, do I look back on this in 2 years and Creeper is too low?
Is Creeper your what then? Your second?
Right now, I guess I'm asking, is Creeper the main a swap? Does that make more sense for our tastes together? Are you happy with the main in the top 5? You really take a lot over that?
I would personally probably move the main down to like 8.
I don't think I take Trophy Eyes or Blink over that though. Like I could talk myself into like 100 Gex Creeper over it.
I just like, I think it's a good album. I just don't necessarily think that it's as impactful to me as a lot of these other albums, just in terms of like the overall year. It feels like this fucking workhorse out, you know what I mean? Like it's just like it's good. Like it's very good. I just like, it's a very good album from the main. I don't know that is terribly surprising.
How would you move it?
If I took the main out and the top 5 was like Sleep Token, Anime, Nothing Nowhere, Creeper, 100 Gex. I think Creeper, at the very least, should move up above the main.
Okay, we do that.
Is that it? Is that the only other move to make here?
Might be it.
actually starting to feel pretty good about this.
You want to lock it in?
I think this is right. And somehow it's something about Beauty School Dropout sneaking into the very bottom of its head just feels correct to me. There's some here that are surprising to me where they ended up, but I think it really was the conversation about them that made them make sense. Is there anything we didn't at any point really talk about, just so they didn't somehow like? No, right? Yeah, we discussed everything. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't like quietly just like assuming something's position.
I mean, again, obviously we touched on it, but Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token is an absolute revelation. If you don't enjoy that band, I'm not telling you to go re-listen to this album. But I think that history will not be on your side.
This is a weird question. So if we take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token out of the equation, Heavener by Invent Anime, is this the album of the year?
It's an interesting way to look at it. I think at various points throughout this year I felt that way.
Okay.
I guess I don't know if that's exactly where I'm at right now, but I'm not sure what else I'm looking at and taking over it at this point. Do you see something?
I mean, like I said, I can feel the argument for Nothing Nowhere. In some weird ways, I can see the argument for Beauty School Dropout, but that feels insane to say, to move it from like 10 up until like 2. I think part of the problem is a lot of the albums that I thought were my number 2, I don't quite feel that way now at the end here. And one of those albums that I feel like I still really confidently love the same way that I loved the first time I heard it was Invent Animate. And similarly, Nothing Nowhere.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel very comfortable with where those albums are. And I think, in a sense, I would probably personally move Void Eternal above Heavener, but it's not a big sticking point with me because they're both very good, and we're moving like the 2 and the 3 here.
Both are still top 3.
Right.
Is how I see it. So,
but like, is that what you feel right about? Or are you now looking at this and going, well, my album's not in the top 3?
No, I'm looking at my top album here.
Right. Sleep Token, like, regardless.
No, well, I mean, like, Invent Animate's right there with it. And honestly,
Okay,
like,
good.
Void Eternal, we gave it a 5 out of 5 this year, so I'm not really going to complain. I think Sanguivore by Creeper is an album that I love right now in this moment, and I feel like it's only an album that I'm going to grow to appreciate more and more with repeated listens throughout the years rather. I mean, you said The Main by The Main is a good The Main album, but like, holy shit, is that worth something to me?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. In the same way that like a good Blink album is worth something to me, right?
I know with 100 gecs, like, part of the attraction is that a lot of the music on there should not be on the album, because why would it be? But I do feel that like some of it doesn't work for me, regardless of how silly it might be, which is why I'm not too broken up about where it's placed. Like, I think a lot of it's really good, but like, I can't see an argument where that is a top 5 record of the year for me personally.
Do you think it's too high where it is right now?
I guess my trouble is maybe I didn't spend enough time with Trophy Eyes. Blink is just, again, it's a little long for me. I don't hate this list, Sam.
All right, then we won't overthink it. Marcos, start at number 20 and work your way up.
The Death We Seek by Currents, So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy, Daydreamer by Dead Lakes, Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan, Fatalism by Polaris, The Surface by Beartooth, A Gradual Decline in Morale by Kim Dracula, Zig by Poppy, The Best Part About Being Human by Bearings, Abeyance by Alt, and at number 10, Ready to Eat by Beauty School Dropout. Number 9 is Super Bloom by Silent Planet. 8, One More Time by Blink-182. 7, Suicide and Sunshine by Trophy Eyes. 6, 10,000 Gex by 100 Gex. 5, The Main by The Main. 4, Sanguivore by Creeper. 3, Void Eternal by Nothing Nowhere. 2, Heavener by Invent Animate. And your number one album of the year. Our number one album of the year.
You want to say it together?
Yeah.
Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token. And the number one fan-voted album of the year is...
Not in our 20.
Not in our 20. It is Certified Depressant by Taylor Acorn. Probably the album that I am now walking away with as the one I need to listen to most, based on where it is placed as number one for the fans. Hey, y'all, it's been a fun year, honestly. This is, like I said, is the last episode of the year. Yo, we fucking did it. We got our top 20 albums. We got our album of the year 2023. If you enjoy the show, 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, thumbs up on YouTube. You can always support us at patreon.com/SOTS podcast. Every link you need in the description of this episode, like merch, socials, Discord, yada, yada, yada. We love you. We'll see you next year. Have a good holiday. Bye.
So long and good play.